Tarak the Siberian Wolf. Prologue. In the heart of Siberia, where the fir trees seemed to touch the sky and the wind cut through the deep snow like an invisible sword, a wolf cub was born. T was a white night, where the moon was reflected in the snowflakes, and the forest seemed to breathe together with its animals. The cub had amber eyes, shining like two stars lost among the fir trees, and an instinct that connected him to every fiber of the forest. His name was Tarak. His pack welcomed him warmly, and his mother, Alyona, looked at him with gentleness and attention. She whispered stories to him about the wind that brought the scent of prey, about the stars that guided the cubs, and about respect for life, be it wolf or human. Tarak felt in his first moments that life was not just about survival. It was about connections, about courage, and about the balance that each being must maintain between instinct and heart. The Siberian forest was not just a setting. It was a living universe. Tall fir trees, covered in snow, formed blue tunnels, through which the wind whistled old stories, and wild animals guarded secrets that only those with wolf eyes could read. In this world, Tarak learned to listen to the earth, to follow the movements of the beasts, and to feel the pulse of life around him. But his amber eyes looked beyond the forest. On a winter night, far away, a fire glowed in the camps of people, and a boy played without fear. Curiosity ignited in his small heart. Who were these people? How did they live? What did they feel? This simple but profound question would mark his destiny. From then on, Tarak was no longer just a wolf cub. He was a soul bound to two worlds. His wolf instinct and desire to know the lives of people began to merge in a journey that would transform him and teach others about love, courage, and the balance between beast and man. This is the story of Tarak, the wolf who looked at the moon and dreamed of being more than a wolf, who felt the call of the pack and the forest, but also the desire of a curious soul to know the world of people and the secrets of the heart. Chapter 1. The Song of the Taiga. The Siberian taiga stretched like an endless sea of ice as far as the eye could see, only tall fir trees, white with hoarfrost, and their long shadows ran across the snow like lines of time. There, deep in the forest, winter was not just a season, it was a living being, breathing coldly and silently, caressing the earth with icy fingers and whispering in the language of the wind songs that only animals understood. The air smelled of resin and pure cold, of frozen and pure life. When the wind blew, the whole forest responded. The old leaves rustled, the snow rose in silvery swirls, and above, the blue sky seemed so close that you could touch it. There was no human time here, only the rhythm of the seasons and the call of instincts. On a February night, when the stars burned cold and distant, the northern pack gathered in a clearing sheltered from the blizzard. It was an old pack, led by a strong and wise she-wolf, Alyona, the one whom all the wolves respected. Her silver fur blended with the snow, and her light blue eyes seemed to have seen thousands of winters. She knew that the moment was approaching. Her body vibrated under the weight of the life that was about to be born. She retreated to a small cave, hidden under an ice-covered rock, in a place where the earth retained an ancient, almost magical warmth. The wind howled above, but inside reigned the silence of a holy expectation. That night, the sky slightly reddened on the horizon, a sign that dawn was not far off. Over the sleeping taiga, only the song of the wolves could be heard, a deep and painful chorus, like a prayer. Thus a new cub was born, under the song of the pack, under the blessing of the wind. The first whimper was heard faintly, almost like a breeze. Then the second, stronger. Among the 3 cubs born that night, one had unusually dark fur, with blue reflections in the moonlight. When she opened her eyes for the first time, Alyona started. They were amber, alive, deep, with a radiance that seemed not only animal, but almost human. "Tarak," she whispered, touching his head with her snout. "Wind Shadow." She named him that because, at the moment of his birth, the wind had stopped, a rare sign in the taiga, where the wind never sleeps. The pack understood that this cub was not a wolf like all the others, and the first days, Alyona did not leave the den. Outside, the blizzard hit the forest, and the sky was an ice bell. But inside, life pulsed warm, smoldering. Tarak struggled alongside his brothers, Nuri and Sion, 2 light gray cubs, gentle and playful. But Tarak was different, silent, attentive, with slower, almost thoughtful movements. When the others slept, he watched the weak light that penetrated through the stone crack, listening as if to an unseen sound as the days passed. Tarak felt the living vibration of the taiga, how the roots of the trees quivered under the snow, how the water flowed below, warm and hidden, how the sky vibrated above the trees. For him, the forest was not just a shelter, it was a huge soul, breathing and whispering in the language of the wind. One day, when spring was barely hinted at in the air, Alyona took them outside for the first time. The sunlight poured over the snow, dazzling and pure. Tarak took a few steps, sinking up to his chest. The snow was cold, but he didn't care. A boundless world stretched out before him, a realm of silence and strength. There, in the middle of the forest, he felt for the first time that he belonged to a world larger than his pack. The pack welcomed him with long, ceremonial howls. The adult wolves approached, sniffed him, examined him. Old Voran, the oldest of them, looked into his eyes and said, "This cub sees beyond the snow." His words were kept by 𝕿𝖆𝖗 in the taiga. Every sign mattered, and the evening, when the sun set behind the fir trees, the forest was covered in a deep purple. The wolves gathered around the resting place, and the air smelled of cold and life. Alyona taught them to recognize smells, to listen to the wind. Tarak learned quickly he had a strange sense. He could feel when something lived or died in the forest, when an elk fell or when an old tree broke under its own weight. At night, when his brothers slept, Tarak stayed awake listening, and then the song of the taiga could be heard, a barely perceptible murmur, like a voice coming from the heart of the earth. It was a wordless melody, made of rustles, crackles and wind. Sometimes it seemed to him that the spirit of the forest was speaking to him through her, like an unseen parent. "You are mine, but not only mine," that's what it seemed to say. Voice. "Someday you will choose between wind and blood." Tarak did not understand, but he felt. Spring came briefly, then left, and Siberia, summer is but a breath. The forest was filled with moist perfumes, the moss woke up, and the waters flowed wildly. Wolves hunted elk and deer, and the cubs learned to follow scents. Tarak was always the quietest, but also the most precise. While Nuri and Sion fought playfully, he observed, analyzed, waited for the perfect moment. One evening, as the sky burned in orange colors, Alyona approached him. "Why don't you howl, Tarak? The pack is calling your voice." He looked at her, and his eyes shone strangely. "I don't feel like howling, Mother, I feel like listening." The she-wolf fell silent, feeling a shiver. As the months passed, Tarak began to move away from the others. He walked alone, wandering the forest, discovering places that even the pack didn't know. He found a lake hidden between the rocks, whose waters were as clear as glass. There, under the reflection of the stars, he saw his face reflected and asked himself, although he didn't know what a question was, "Who am I?" The forest answered him only with silence. On a clear night, with the full moon rising above the taiga, Tarak heard the song again. This time, clearer, deeper, it seemed like a choir of ancient voices, of the ancestors. T called him north, where the forest rose into the mountains, to a black rock, the place the wolves called the Lonely Rock. Alyona felt him leaving. She didn't stop him. Some calls can't be stopped. When he got there, the wind was blowing hard, and the stars seemed to be shaking. Tarak stopped at the top of the rock, looking at the white expanse. There, in absolute solitude, he felt for the first time that he was not just a wolf cub, and his chest beat a heart that wanted to understand more than hunger, more than cold, more than the life of the pack. And then he closed his eyes. The wind brought to his mind faces, human silhouettes, shadows around fires, laughter, voices. He didn't know what they were, but they attracted him. The song of the taiga suddenly rose, stronger, like a wave of light. From every tree, from every blade of grass, from every step of the snow, a harmony was born. It was the song of life and death, of the beginning and the end. And Tarak, the cub with amber eyes, felt part of it. Under that cold moon, the taiga sang its soul, and a wolf cub listened. The song would always follow him, because, from that night, the spirit of the forest had heard it, and he remembered his name. Chapter 2. Under the Wing of the Pack. The taiga breathed cold steam at the dawn of a new day. The sun barely rose over the frozen forest, and its pale light did not warm, but only colored the white of the snow in a dazzling glow. Deep in the forest, the northern pack was preparing for the first hunt of the spring season, and the cubs, Tarak, Nuri, and Sion, were about to see for the first time what hunger transformed into movement meant. The law written in the blood of each wolf. Their mother, Alyona, had risen early. Her silver fur shone in the morning light, and her blue eyes watched with silent wisdom. Around her, the pack moved orderly, each wolf knew its place, each breath was a sign of unity. T was like an orchestra of shadows, and Alyona was at heart. Tarak looked at her with admiration. For him, Mother was not only the that fed and protected them, was the voice of the forest. All he knew about life came from its movements, from its silences. When he walked, not even the snow dared to creak. When he looked, it seemed he could see to the depths of the earth. "Today you will learn to listen," she said, touching his forehead with her muzzle. "A wolf doesn't hunt with its teeth alone, it hunts with its soul." Tarak blinked, not fully understanding, but his amber eyes were ablaze with curiosity. The pack set off through the forest. The snow crunched under the heavy paws of the big wolves, but the young ones walked timidly, trying to follow their example. Alyona walked in the lead, and the cubs learned to follow each other's tracks, so as not to leave any more. Tarak.It was an art, a game of silence. In a way, Alyona stopped suddenly. The wind had changed, bringing with it smells, moss, water, life. "Listen, Tarak," she whispered to him. "The earth speaks when you know how to hear it. Put your paw here." Tarak touched the snow. Beneath it, he felt a faint vibration, a fine, almost imperceptible tremor. He thought it was his heart, but Alyona smiled. "There below, the reindeer herd is walking. You can't see them, but you can feel them. They send their sound through the earth. That's how we find out where life is. That's how we find out when death is coming." Her words left a mark on him. He stood still, feeling the earth pulsate. That moment, for the first time, he understood what it meant to listen to the forest. When they stopped at the edge of a clearing, the pack sat in a silent circle. The curious cubs began to play, but Tarak stayed next to their mother. Nuri and Sion were rolling around in the snow, biting each other gently, whining with joy. Tarak looked at them with an inner smile. He loved their innocent way of living, but he felt something else. He felt that beyond the game, the world hid an invisible order. Alyona let them play. The wind had subsided, and the forest seemed to sleep. Then, with a sudden movement, he stood up and started forward. All the cubs stopped, and in an instant, the entire pack was transformed. The playful silence changed to the silence of a hunt. The adult wolves spread out in a semicircle. The cubs stood there, observing. Tarak watched them with his eyes, studying every gesture, every breath. It was a macabre and beautiful dance. Shadows sneaking through the trees, fangs flashing, eyes lurking. Then, suddenly, an elk burst out from behind a trunk, the giant of the forest, tall, strong, with steam coming out of its nostrils. The pack rushed at him. Everything turned into a whirlwind of snow, sounds, and smells. Tarak felt his blood boiling, his body vibrating in unison with the others. But he didn't run. Not yet. He remained next to his mother, who looked at him and said, "Don't rush to take life. First learn to respect it." The elk collapsed. The wolves fell silent. Only heavy breathing could be heard. The pack was not killing out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Alyona approached the body of the fallen animal and touched its muzzle with hers, as if in a silent prayer. "Thank you, brother of the forest," she murmured. "You gave us your life so that we could live." Tarak understood then the first law of the forest: nothing is taken without giving back. That night, while the others were eating, he looked at the sky and felt in it a deep, almost holy silence. After the hunt, the pack retreated to a clearing sheltered from the wind. The wolves were sleeping, full, but Alyona remained awake. Tarak approached and lay down next to her. Her fur smelled of snow, wind, and life. "Mother," he asked, "why does the forest teach us through hunger?" The she-wolf answered with a long silence. Then he said, "Because hunger is the first voice of the world. When you are hungry, you learn what lack means. And whoever knows lack, learns to appreciate the gift. And when we are no longer hungry, then we must give thanks." Tarak fell silent, and in his mind, his mother's words mingled with the rustling of the forest. It was a world where life and death were not enemies, but parts of the same song. Alyona told him about the spirit of the forest, a being as old as the mountains, who watched over everyone. The spirit sees everything, Sun neither punishes nor rewards, he only balances. When we take too much, he reminds us to give back. Tarak asked, "Have you ever seen him?" "No, but I have felt him. Every night when the wind sings differently, it is his voice." The days passed. Tarak grew. His movements became sure, deeper gaze. 𝕤𝖏 and 𝕲𝖏 were strong, but he was different, less impulsive, more thoughtful. Sometimes, the pack would go hunting and he would stay behind, just to listen. He would lie on the ground, with his ear pressed to the snow, and listen to the vibrations of life. That's how he knew if a reindeer was approaching or if a tree had fallen kilometers away. Alyona followed him from afar, and in her eyes, you could read pride, but also a dull fear. She felt that Tarak was not only a son of the pack, but of the entire forest. One evening, when the sky was full of the northern lights, Tarak approached his mother and said, "Mother, why do I sometimes feel that the forest is calling my name?" The she-wolf looked at him for a long time, with her clear eyes. "Because the forest chose you. Some wolves are born just to live. You were born to understand." Tarak didn't understand it then, but those words would haunt him for the rest of his life. A summer night brought something new to their taiga, the smell of smoke. Far away, among the trees, strange lights danced. Tarak climbed a ridge and looked. It was the first time he had seen human fire. Around the flames moved silhouettes, strange creatures on two legs, talking to each other in high voices. Tarak felt a mixture of fear and fascination. He didn't understand what they were, but in their eyes he saw something familiar. An inner light, a force that resembled that of wolves. Alyona pulled him back. "Don't look at them too long. Humans are fire. If you get too close, you burn." But Tarak continued watch, hidden among the shadows. Something awoke in his heart, a desire to know, to understand what those beings were who made the light listen. When he returned to the den, the wind blew softly through the fir trees, carrying the scent of smoke and melted snow. Tarak lay down next to his brothers. But he did not fall asleep, and in his mind, his mother's voice echoed, "A wolf does not hunt with his teeth alone, he hunts with his soul." He felt that this same soul was calling him to something beyond his pack, beyond the forest, beyond what he could understand. The spirit of the forest, from somewhere in the depths of the silence, was already listening to him. And so, under the wing of the pack, not just a hunter was born, but a conscience. Chapter 3. Blood Brothers. Spring had passed quickly, and the Siberian summer had descended on the taiga like a short, warm breath, and in the forest, everything was buzzing. The moss rose softly underfoot, the rivers bubbled with meltwater from the glaciers, and the air smelled of life and freedom. And in the middle of this living world, the wolf cubs grew up, learning the game and the law of the pack. Tarak, 𝕤𝖏, and 𝕲𝖏 were now teenagers, young, strong, but still untested by the big hunt. Their bodies had changed. Their fur was shiny. Their muscles twitched under their skin, and their eyes shone with impatience. Every day, the pack let them free for hours, to play, to learn, to discover their strengths. For Tarak, the forest was a master, but for his brothers it was a playground. 𝕤𝖏, the largest and most impulsive, was always the first to fight, the one who provoked and laughed loudly. 𝕲𝖏, the middle, was cunning and quick, always ready to feint or to sneak up behind the opponent. And Tarak was silent, calculated, but when he acted, he was as precise as the wind that cuts through the silence. Every morning, before the sun reached the tops of the fir trees, the three brothers would set off for the pack's clearing there, on the ground covered with damp grass. The play fights would begin. 𝕤𝖏 would throw himself first, with a harsh bark, trying to knock Tarak over. 𝕲𝖏 would follow him from the side, trying to grab him by the scruff of the neck. Tarak would let himself be caught for a moment, then roll over with agility and, with an unexpected movement, would throw them both into the snow. "You can't play, Tarak." 𝕤𝖏 would laugh, shaking himself. "You think too much." "And you too little," Tarak would answer calmly, in a tone that already resembled his mother's Alyona. Above them, the forest vibrated with noises, birds, wind, rustling leaves. The pack sometimes watched them from the shadows. Some adults smiled wolfishly, recognizing in their wild play a rehearsal of future battles. But there was something different about Tarak. He enjoyed not only the fight, but also its meaning. When he struck, he did it like a dancer who knows his rhythm perfectly. When he fell, he learned from mistakes. He did not get angry. Alyona watched him silently, while 𝕤𝖏 and 𝕲𝖏 fought with unbridled joy. "They will be good fangs," said the old Voron, approaching her. "But Tarak will not be just a fang," Alyona answered. "He will be heart. One day, the pack set off on a journey to the north, where the winds were colder and the land rougher. The cubs had to learn endurance. The road was long, and the snow, still untouched in some places, reached their chests. 𝕲𝖏, the youngest, collapsed first. "I can't do it any more, Mom," he whined, tired. Alyona came closer and touched his muzzle. "A wolf doesn't stop because he's tired, he only stops when he's done." 𝕤𝖏 turned and gently pushed his brother, helping him to get up. Tarak, however, remained silent, not out of indifference, but because he felt something else, the rhythm of the pack steps, the beating of their hearts, the sound of the wind cutting their path. Everything blended into a unique melody. When they reached a peak, Alyona stopped. From there, the forest stretched like an endless sea. Tarak approached the edge and looked down. The world seemed small, and the wind howled among the rocks. A strange desire was born in him, to know everything, to touch every shadow, to understand the mystery of every breath. 𝕤𝖏, next to him, raised his head and howled, young howl, full of pride. 𝕲𝖏 followed him. Tarak wanted to follow, but something stopped him. He was not howling with joy, but from a deep need, a longing for something unnamed. "Why don't you howl, brother?" 𝕤𝖏 laughed. "Because the wind is already howling for me," Tarak said, looking him straight in the eye. Over time, a silent tension began to be felt between the three brothers. 𝕤𝖏, the eldest, wanted to be the leader. He trained more. He was the first to take on any challenge. He sought recognition. Tarak did not contradict him, but his simple silence made 𝕤𝖏 feel small. One evening, when the pack was resting by the river, 𝕤𝖏 came to Tarak. "Do you think you are better because you are silent?" "No, brother," Tarak answered calmly. "But perhaps some things are said without a voice." "I speak with my teeth," 𝕤𝖏 snarled, jumping on him. 𝕲𝖏 intervened between them, but Tarak stopped him. "Leave him," he said. "Let us learn what courage is." They curled up in the snow, two young wolves, equal in strength but not in thought. 𝕤𝖏 struck furiously. Tarak defended himself, avoiding injury, and a moment of inattention, 𝕤𝖏 slipped, and Tarak grabbed him by the throat. He could have bitten him. He didn't. He released him and retreated. "Why did you stop?" 𝕤𝖏 asked, panting. "Because you are my brother. And a brother is not an enemy." Alyona, who had been watching everything from a distance, came closer. "You have shed your first sweat of battle," the told them. "From now on, you are blood brothers." The three touched their muzzles in a gesture that was thousands of years old, and that moment, the rivalry faded, and its place, an unwavering bond was born, a brotherhood that would bind them until death. Time passed, and Tarak felt his world expand. On a clear night, with a full moon high in the sky, he woke up early. The pack was sleeping. His brothers were breathing quietly next to him. But the wind was calling him. He came out of the den and sat on a snowbank. The forest was quiet, but alive, and the distance, the howl of a strange wolf could be heard, perhaps another pack, and that sound, Tarak recognized something, an echo of his own heart. "Somewhere, out there is a meaning bigger," he said to himself. Above, the stars twinkled coldly, and the aurora danced in green and blue waves. Tarak felt the taiga speak to him. He wanted to scream, but he didn't. He closed his eyes and listened, and that silence, he heard the song from deep within the earth. The same song he had heard when he was a 𝕲𝖏 was the song of the taiga. It was the voice of the spirit. The next day, Tarak took his brothers to the same place. He showed them the sky, the aurora, the silence. "This is our place," he said. "Let us swear that no matter how far life takes us, we will remain blood brothers, that we will not forget the forest, nor each other." 𝕤𝖏 and 𝕲𝖏 looked at him, surprised by the solemnity in his voice. But they understood. They came closer, touched their foreheads, and uttered the howl of the pack. Their echo rose over the taiga, getting lost in the distance. Far away, the spirit of the forest listened to them and smiled. Because he knew, the bonds made of blood and silence are the ones that last over the centuries. Chapter 4. The echo of people. The snow had melted, and the taiga was changing its breath. The earth, once asleep under the whiteness of silence, was emitting fumes of life. There was a smell of wet earth, of roots, of resurrection. The wind brought new sounds from afar, the crackling of branches, unknown calls, the murmur of thawed rivers. The pack was preparing for the summer departure, following the old paths that led to the northeast, where the reindeer herds moved for green. Tea was a migration as old as time. But that year would be different, because something else was coming from the south, the smell of smoke, of burnt leather and iron. People were entering the forest. Alyona was the first to feel them. One morning, on the edge of a stream, she found deep, large footprints, with short fingers and heavy bones. Near them, a strange, round, deep, crushed track in the ground. "People," she murmured. "They pass by here." The pack approached cautiously. Tarak, always in the lead, smelled the tracks. His senses were overwhelmed: leather, smoke, fat, sweat, the smell of old blood, but also something fascinating, something unknown, a smell of living fire, which came neither from the sky nor from the earth. "What are people, mother?" he asked. Alyona looked at the horizon. "They are warm shadows who have learned to burn the world without touching it. They make light from the death of wood and life from fear." 𝕾𝖫 growled lightly. "Then they are bigger hunters than us." "No," Tarak said, looking at the tracks. "They are something else." A curiosity was growing in him that would never leave him again. A few days later, on a windless night, the pack stopped on a hill. A reddish, trembling light came from the valley. Tarak started. It was the first time he had seen fire. The flames danced in a living circle, and around them moved figures, people, men and women, covered in furs. They laughed, talked, moved. Sometimes they threw pieces of wood into the flames, and the fire grew, sparkling. In the night. For 𝕾𝖫, it was only a danger. "Let's go back," he said. "Their scent will betray us." But Tarak could not take his eyes off them. Fire fascinated him. Tea was alive, but it didn't breathe. Tea burned, but it had no body. Tea stretched its tongue towards the sky and fed on air. And, strangely enough, people didn't run away from it, but they caressed it, fed it, loved it. "Mom," he asked softly, "why doesn't it burn them?" "Because they made a covenant with fire," Alyona said. "A wolf fears it, but a man teaches it." They took a piece of the sky and put it in the earth. Tarak remained silent. The flames were reflected in his amber eyes, and in that light, something ignited in him. The next night, the pack slept, but Tarak did not. When they all went to bed, he silently crept through the fir trees. He walked like a shadow, followed by the echo of his heart. The wind carried his scent of people. When he approached the camp, he hid. Behind a log up close, everything was even stranger. He could see their faces, pale, flushed with heat, covered in hair and wrinkles. He could hear their voices, laughter, strange words, rhythms. Some were singing, and their sounds seemed like incantations. The child threw a piece of meat into the fire, and the smell filled the air. Tarak started. It was not the smell of ordinary prey. The meat was cooked, soft, sweet. "They change food," he thought. "They change the world." He moved closer, oh close that the flames lit up his eyes. The heat touched his muzzle. He pulled back suddenly, the fire burning him, but calling him at the same time. The man turned. For a moment, his gaze met the wolf's. The man froze. The wolf, too. Neither moved, and in that second, a silent bridge stretched between them, an invisible thread. The man spoke something in his language, a short, calm word. Then he threw a piece of meat into the snow. Not far from Tarak. The wolf looked at her, smelled her. He didn't touch her. He retreated into the forest, but that look, that meeting, would follow him for the rest of his life. When he returned, Alyona was waiting for him. "You were there." Tarak was silent. "You looked at them too much," she continued. "People lure the soul, son. They make you forget what you are." Tarak raised his head. "But, mother, maybe we're not so different. They have packs, like us. They gather around the fire, like we gather around the moon. They laugh, love, and cry. Maybe there's a part of the forest in them too. Alyona looked at him for a long time, with gentle sadness. Maybe you're right, he said. But remember, people no longer hear the voice of the spirit. They have forgotten the song of the taiga. Tarak closed his eyes, and his dream, the fire turned into eyes, the eyes into stars, the stars into howls. The spirit of the forest appeared to him in his sleep, like a silhouette of light. "Why do you seek the flame, wolf cub?" asked the gentle but deep voice. "Because I want to understand why it burns without destroying." The spirit smiled. "Then you will know the pain. Because whoever wants to understand fire must feel it in their heart." And the following days, the pack moved east, but the fires of the people were seen more and more often. Sometimes, the forest smelled of smoke even when nothing was visible. The wolves were restless. 𝕾𝖏 and 𝕲𝖏 began to growl whenever the wind brought that smell. "They are coming towards us," 𝕾𝖏 said. "And if we don't leave, they will chase us away." Yes, Tarak didn't want to run. He wanted to see point. One evening, he climbed a cliff. From there, in the distance, two lights could be seen. Two human camps. Two fires, like two hearts. He felt the call again. T wasn't a threat. T was an attraction. The wind brought him a melody, a woman's voice singing. The words were unfamiliar, but he felt something familiar in them. Alyona caught up with him. "You can't hide from yourself anymore, Tarak," she told him. "The spirit has chosen you for a path that even I can't understand." He turned to her. "What path?" "The one between the worlds. Between wolf and man. One night, a strong wind stirred up a firestorm in the valley. Human camp burned. The wolves watched from afar as the flames devoured everything. Screams rose to the sky, followed by silence. Tarak trembled. For the first time, the fire did not seem beautiful to him. T was cruel, merciless, alive, and greedy. "That's how their light dies," Alyona said. "Fire is a friend until you turn your back on it." But Tarak could not forget the image of the people who had been there, faces, voices, songs. He approached the edge of the ashes. Among the smoking remains, he found a small object, a piece of wood carved in the shape of a wolf. He touched it with his muzzle and understood. They knew them too, perhaps in a distant time. People and wolves had been one and the same. When he turned to the pack, Tarak was no longer the same. An inner flame burned in his eyes. T was not just curiosity. T was a desire to know, to understand, to feel the world on both sides. 𝕾𝖏 looked at him with fear. "You have changed, brother." "Maybe so," said Tarak. "Maybe the fire burns without consuming." The pack moved on, but behind them, the taiga kept the echo of people, footprints, ash and silence. Tarak stopped for a moment and looked back. The fire still burned in the distance, and his heart, the same fire, began to light up. Chapter 5. The Night of the Forbidden Hunt. Night had fallen over the Siberian taiga like an ebony sea. The sky, clear and cold, seemed a mirror broken into thousands of stars, and the snow below reflected their brilliance like a frozen lake. The wind was silent, but in that silence there was a tension. Something restless was moving through the forest, a rustling that only the wolves could hear. The pack walked in silence. Alyona led the way, her blue eyes burning with instinct. 𝕾𝖏 and 𝕲𝖏 followed her steps, and Tarak, slightly behind, felt a smell in the air that disturbed him. The smell of people. It was a familiar and yet foreign smell: smoke, salt, skin, blood. But that night, there was not only curiosity in it, but also something heavy, threatening. Alyona had stopped. "They are close," she said in a low voice. "They have come too deep into the forest." 𝕾𝖏 growled, his white fangs gleaming in the moonlight. "They have killed reindeer on the plain. I smelled their blood on the ice. It is our turn to take back." Alyona did not answer immediately. She seemed to hesitate. In the wolf pack, killing a human was a forbidden law. The spirit of the forest did not forgive her easily. But hunger was great, and the land was poor. Voron, the old gray wolf, slowly approached. "It is a harsh winter. They will not let us take our prey. If we do not take now, we will perish." Alyona closed her eyes. The wind passed through her fur like a whisper. "Then let it not be a hunt," she said finally. "Let it be just a lesson." But in the eyes of the pack, lessons quickly turned to blood. Tarak walked alongside his brothers, restless, he felt the vibration of the pack, that energy that precedes the attack, that collective pulse that united their souls into one immense beast. Their every step was synchronized, every breath in unison. Ahead, the light of the people's fire could be seen among the trunks. 2 tents, a few moving shadows, and the flames dancing in the darkness. People were talking. Tarak heard their voices, gentle, unaware. There were 3 of them, a man, a woman, and a child. They were laughing. They were laughing in the middle of the forest, a new sound, a whistle melody. Thin, warm, pure. Tarak stopped. The child was singing. That sound vibrated in his chest, like an echo from another world. For a moment, forget the pack, forget the night, he wanted to get closer, to see him. But then 𝕤𝖐 turned to him. "Brother, don't stop now." "They're just people," Tarak muttered. "I'm not prey." "Everything that lives and breathes is prey," 𝕤𝖐 growled. And he took off, short, like an ice arrow. It all happened in an instant. Howl tore through the night. Alyona rose to her hind legs and jumped. The pack burst out of the shadows, like a living avalanche. The fire of the people broke into sparks. The man screamed. The woman tried to protect her child. Tarak stood there, paralyzed. 2 forces were fighting inside him, the call of the pack and another voice, a deeper one, telling him no. He saw how 𝕤𝖐 jumped over the fire and grabbed the man by the arm. The screams mingled with screams. The snow turned red. The woman collapsed. The child broke free and ran towards the edge of the forest. Tarak saw him. His eyes were wide, frightened, and he still held the whistle around his neck. "No!" Tarak screamed, but his voice was lost in the roar. The child fell. A shadow passed over him. 𝕆𝖆𝖗, short cry, then silence. Tarak arrived too late. When he approached, the boy lay motionless. The snow was melting beneath him, red. The whistle had slipped from his hands. The pack was already retreating, full and tired. But Tarak remained there. He was shivering. Not from the cold, but from something deeper. He looked at the child's face. 𝕶 was pale, but peaceful. 𝕶 seemed to be sleeping. Tarak touched the whistle with his muzzle and felt the fading heat. That melody still rang in his ears. Thin, sweet, pure, the melody of a soul that knew no hatred. When he returned, the pack was silent. No one spoke. Alyona walked in the lead, her eyes downcast. 𝕤𝖐 and 𝕆𝖆𝖗 seemed content, but Tarak could not look up. "Mother," he said finally. "Why?" Alyona stopped. "It was a mistake," she said. "The spirit of the forest will not be merciful." "Then why did we do it?" "Because hunger darkens even the brightest hearts." Tarak collapsed into the snow, as if the earth were calling him. "I heard his song, Mother," he whispered. "He was beautiful, he was alive. And now he died because of us." Alyona looked at him with eyes full of pain. "Not because of you, son. But you will carry his echo." The next night, Tarak did not sleep. He stood on a rock, his head raised to the sky. The wind blew coldly, and above him stretched the aurora, flames of light dancing across the darkness. "Spirit of the forest," he thought, "if you are there, listen to me." The wind stopped. The forest fell silent. Then, from the green light of the aurora, a figure emerged. 𝕶 was a tall shadow, neither wolf nor man, with eyes that shone like embers. "You called me, son of the taiga," said the spirit. "I know why." Tarak lowered his head. "A child died." "I know. Life and death are 2 sides of the same winter. But it didn't have to be like this. He didn't harm us." The spirit was silent for a moment. "And yet, you saw what hunger does. You saw what fear does, our people, Tarak. Not all bad, not all good. But they all carry the same fire within them." The wolf looked at him. "I want to understand them. I want to know what they feel. Why they create and destroy at the same time." The spirit smiled slightly. "Then one day you will feel on your own skin what it means to be human. But know that every gift of the spirit is also a wound." Then the light went out, and Tarak was left alone, under the polar sky. Days passed, but a shadow fell on Tarak. The pack moved on, but he always lagged behind. He often returned to the scene of the tragedy, as if hoping to hear the boy singing again. One day, he found the whistle. 𝕐𝖗 was frozen, but untouched. He took it between his teeth and took it to the end. Tonight, when Everyone was sleeping. He blew gently into it. The sound was weak, broken, but alive. Alyona watched him from the shadows. "That song will follow you, Tarak, until you learn why you had to hear it." Winter died down, but in Tarak's heart another winter was born, one that would not melt. When he looked at the fire, he saw the boy's eyes. When he heard the wind, he heard the whistle. And every time the pack hunted, he felt something inside him break. The spirit of the forest was preparing him for another life, but he did not know it yet. For Tarak, the night of the forbidden hunt had not only been a tragedy, it had been the beginning of the road to humanity. Chapter 6. The Lonely Rock. Snow had fallen over the Siberian taiga like a curtain of silence. The air smelled of ice and stars. Far away, where the forest ended and the mountains lifted their shoulders to the sky, stood the lonely rock, a column of black basalt, sharp as a blade, beaten by the winds and shrouded in mystery. No one in the pack went near it. It was said that the spirit of the forest sometimes descended there to speak with the shadows. For a wolf, that place was sacred and dangerous. But Tarak went there every night. Since the tragedy in a human camp, Tarak had not been the same. The pack looked at him with distrust. Nuri and Sion teased him, and Alyona's mother, although she loved him, saw him drifting further and further away. "Son," she had told him one evening, "you can't change what happened. The spirit will find balance. You just have to live." But Tarak couldn't any more. Tonight, while the others slept, he would walk alone. He would follow the scent of the wind and listen to the earth beneath his feet. The ice creaked, the forests crackled, and the sky was an abyss dotted with lights. When he reached the foot of the lonely rock, he felt small and empty. He would look up at the black and cold height and begin the climb. It was a struggle. The ice hurt him, and the wind hit him with the force of a living being. But Tarak always climbed, step by step, to the top. There, under the northern lights that danced over the world, he raised his head and howled. His howl was not one of hunting. It was a prayer, song of desire, pain, and helplessness. "Spirit of the forest," Tarak cried in his mind, "you who are the wind and the snow, listen to me. I do not want blood. I do not want prey. I want to understand. Why do people kill without hunger? Why do they love and suffer at the same time? Why did that child have to die?" The wind did not answer. Only the aurora moved above, like a flame dancing in the sky. Tarak crouched down, tired, and put his muzzle on his paws, felt the warmth of the earth beneath him, although everything was frozen. "If necessary, take my fur, take my howl, take my fangs. Give me another body, another heart, just so I can understand people, to see the world through their eyes." It was a sincere prayer, born not from pride, but from longing. When fatigue overtook him, Tarak would fall asleep there, on the rock. And in his dream, the spirit of the forest spoke to him through images. One night, he dreamed of the forest burning. Wolves were running through the flames, and in their midst, the boy with the flute was singing a sad melody. Smoke was coming out of his flute, and the notes became birds that scattered in the wind. Then the image changed. Tarak saw himself, but not as a wolf, but as a man. He was walking through a village covered in snow, with fur clothes and those amber eyes, the same as now. People looked at him with fear, but a woman with hair as white as a scythe was smiling at him. Then he woke up, trembling. "It's a sign," he told himself. "The spirit has shown me the way." But he didn't know how hard it would be. Days passed, and Tarak continued to retreat. The pack began to look at him as strange, broken from their nature. Nuri came to him one day, his eyes full of anger. "Why do you always leave? What are you doing there, on the rock?" "I'm looking for peace." "There is no place for peace for hunters. The pack needs you." "Maybe I'm not one of you anymore." Nuri growled. "You forgot the blood that flows through you. The spirit does not forgive wolves who think they are anything else." "Maybe the spirit wants more from me," Tarak answered, calmly but firmly. Sion, the younger brother, looked at him sadly. "Brother, if you go there too often, the spirit will take you. It is said that whoever talks to it too much disappears." "Then let him take me," said Tarak, "if that is the truth." One February night, the sky lit up. The aurora was more vivid than ever, a sea of green and blue colors flowing over the taiga. Tarak felt a strong call, more intense than ever. The wind whistled, the forest groaned, and he climbed the cliff again. The ice bit his paws, but he didn't stop. He felt he had to reach the top that night. When he reached the top, the sky seemed a palm's breadth away. The northern lights flowed over him, and the earth trembled. Slightly, like a breath, Tarak rose on his hind legs and howled with all his might. The howl went far, twisting among the mountains, and it seemed that the sky answered him. The aurora suddenly darkened, then burst into a blinding white light. From that light a figure was born. It was tall, shining, with eyes of fire and a voice that resembled the wind. "You have called me many times, Tarak, son of Alyona," the spirit said, and his voice seemed to fill the air. "What do you want from me?" Tarak lowered his head, full of respect. "I want to understand people, spirit. I want to feel their hearts, to know their pain. I want to know why their son died under my teeth." The spirit looked at him for a long time. "You have seen too much for a young wolf. But do you know what you are asking?" "I only know that I can no longer live without answers." The wind picked up, and the rock began to tremble. The spirit changed its shape. Now a wolf, now a deer, now an eagle, then a man and an old man, with long white hair, in bearskin clothes. "People are not what they seem," he said. "Some have souls as clear as springs, others dirty as swamps. But they all carry a flame that burns inside them. You, Tarak, have that flame already. Then light it, spirit. Make me one of them." The spirit sighed. "Transformation is not a gift, it is both a curse and a blessing. You will lose everything you are now, the howl, the instinct, the speed. But you will gain something else, thoughts, fear, love." "I am ready." The spirit looked at him one last time. "Then come back here, on the night when the wind sings like a child. Then I will open the way." Then the light dissipated, and Tarak was left alone. But his heart was burning. When he returned to the pack, Alyona looked into his eyes and knew. "You spoke to the spirit." "Yes." "And what did he tell you?" "That one night he will change me." Alyona sighed, a deep sadness crossing her gaze. "If you leave, I will not stop you. But never forget the song of the wolves, Tarak. When you feel that you no longer know who you are, your howl will call you home." Tarak pressed his forehead to her fur. "I will not forget you, mother," and he left again, towards the black rock that called him. That night, the wind really sang like a child. Under the sky of green and white fire, Tarak climbed the rock for the 1,000th time. There was no longer fear in him, no pain, only a burning desire to know. He looked at the sky and said softly, "Spirit of the forest, I am ready." Aurora descended over him like a cloak, and the light penetrated his skin. He was going to be born differently. But that was the story of another night. Chapter 7. The Wolf's Prayer. The taiga was silent, a deep silence, such as only Siberia can have, a silence of ice, of stopped time, of listening worlds. The stars burned in the sky like the eyes of ancient beings, and the moon, round and cold, rose above the snow-covered rocks, and in the middle of that wilderness, Tarak climbed again to the lonely rock. It was the promised night, the night when the wind sang like a child. He had not eaten for 3 days, he had not slept for 3 nights. He felt hunger biting him, but not like pain, but like a purification. He was emptied of everything he had been, ready to leave the beast inside him behind. When he reached the top, the wind met his steps like a breath of spirit. The aurora borealis pulsed above the world, spreading its green and white light over the forest. The world seemed suspended between 2 breaths, one of the wolf, the other of the man who would be. Tarak sat down. He felt the cold stone beneath him. Old as time. He looked up at the sky, and for the first time, he did not howl, he spoke. "Spirit of the forest, I call you. I am Tarak, son of Alyona, born of snow and blood. I have lived as a wolf. I have felt the wind and the earth. I have hunted and loved the taiga. But I saw something that no wolf should see." The wind picked up. The snow rose around him, like a curtain of white smoke. "I saw a child killed. I saw tears and fire. I felt that death was not meant to be. Since then, my heart has not been silent. I want to understand. I want to know why people laugh and cry, why they fear and yet love. I want to live among them, to feel their soul." The aurora moved slightly, as if the sky were listening. Tarak raised his head, and his voice turned into a song, 𝕾𝖆𝖗, a prayer of flesh and ice. The forest answered him. The echo came down from the mountains like a breath. His howl mixed with the wind, with the rustling of the trees, with the heartbeat of the earth. It was as if the entire taiga was singing along with him. Then, suddenly, the sky broke. A column of light descended over the rock. The snow melted under the rays of that light green. The wind stopped, time stopped. A form emerged from the light. It was neither man nor beast. It was everything. Its fur was made of shadows, its eyes of flame, and its voice of the echo of the wind. "Tarak," said the spirit, "I have listened to your prayer too many times. This time you have come prepared." Tarak bowed. "I can no longer live among wolves. I can no longer hunt without feeling the pain of the hunted. My mother's teachings are no longer enough. I want to know what is beyond the forest." The spirit stepped close to him, and his footsteps, the snow turned to clear water. "People are not what you dream, son of the pack," he said. "They carry light and darkness within them. Some tear down forests to build houses, others die defending a tree. What you call love, to them is also pain. What you call life, is also struggle." "I want to know both," Tarak answered. The spirit was silent for a moment, then raised his hand. His fingers turned into birch branches. "Then I will change you. But every gift has a price. You will forget the language of wolves. Your pack will no longer recognize you. Your mother will look for you, but she will not find you. And you will not be able to call her any more. Are you sure you want this?" Tarak closed his eyes. "Yes, for the boy who died. For his lost song." The spirit stuck its branches into the ground. From under the snow, threads of light rose, snaking like veins. "Then, Tarak, give me your howl. Give me your fur, give me your fangs. Give me all that is beast in you." Tarak opened his mouth and howled. But this time, the howl was not a wolf's, it was a parting cry. Its fur ruffled, then began to melt, turning into silver smoke. His muscles tightened, his bones twisted. The pain was unbearable. Every fiber, every tendon was changing. His claws were falling off, his paws were lengthening, and his breathing was breaking. "Spirit," he cried, "burn." "Pain is the gateway to man, Tarak," the spirit answered. "Through it consciousness is born." The howl died out, replaced by a human voice. His neck thinned, his fur receded, his skin stretched like a new wing. In a few moments, where the gray wolf of the pack had been, a naked young man lay, trembling, covered in steam. His hair was black as night, and his eyes, the same amber eyes, in which the sky was reflected. Tarak breathed heavily. He looked at his hands, his fingers, his foreign body. He tried to get up, but his legs wouldn't listen to him. The wind touched him like a caress, and he flinched. It was the first time he had felt the cold as a human. "What is this?" he whispered. "Why does everything hurt?" The spirit smiled. "It is life." The wolf felt the earth. Man feels within himself. You wanted to understand. Now you will feel everything. And my pack. They will feel you, but they will not recognize you. Show them, you will be just a man. Tarak stood up slowly. His gait was uncertain, like that of a puppy learning to walk. The snow burned his feet. The cold air prickled his skin. But in his heart pulsed something new. The spirit looked at him for a long time. "I have also given you a new name for the world of men," he said. "But you will discover it for yourself. Men choose their names according to their deeds." Tarak fell to his knees, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Spirit, thank you." "Don't thank me, I only open doors. You will choose the path." The light began to fade, and the spirit dissolved into the air, becoming wind, forest, and silence again. Tarak was left alone. The sky was brightening with dawn on the rock, the snow was melting around him, and far away, the pack was howling. He tried to answer, but only a weak, human, broken sound came from his throat. Then he understood the price. He fell to his knees and cried. That cry did not resemble the howl of a wolf. It was warm, heartbreaking. Human.T was proof that the spirit had kept his word. When the sun rose, Tarak rose too. His body was trembling, But his soul, more alive than ever, he looked at the forest and said quietly, "Mother, if you ever hear me, know that I have not forgotten you." Then he descended slowly, step by step, to the world of men, the dawn of another being. In the valley, the frozen river shone under the first rays. The air smelled of burnt wood and smoke, and in the distance, Tarak saw traces of life, roofs, fences, thin smoke trails. For the first time, his heart beat fast, not from fear, but from emotion. He felt hunger, cold, the shame of his naked body, but also an incomprehensible joy. He was human. He stopped for a moment, looked back at the rock, and smiled. There, the wind seemed to whisper to him, "Remember, son of wolves, man forgets, but the soul does not. Wherever you go, the forest will be within you." Tarak placed his hand on his chest, where his heart beat strongly, like an invisible drummer, took the first step towards the village, and, together with it, began another life. Chapter 8. The Voice of the Wind. Morning rose over the taiga like a long, heavy breath. The moon had slowly faded behind the mountains, and the dawn light trickled over the tall trees like a trail of pale gold. Everything seemed born from silence. Not a bird sang, not a wolf howled. There was a deep, living silence that seemed to listen, and in the middle of that silence, Tarak, the wolf-born man, slowly rose from the cold snow. His body was numb. His skin trembled at the touch of the air. He looked at his hands. They were foreign, fragile, white as ice. When he squeezed them, he felt a strange strength, but also a weakness. He no longer had fangs, no claws. He had soft flesh and blood pulsing under his skin. He looked around. The forest was the same, but different. Each tree now had a voice, a small whisper, which he no longer felt it with his wolf ears, but with something new, with his mind. The cold enveloped him. His bare feet burned in the snow, and the wind bit his skin. Tea was a strange, but vivid pain. Tea was no longer one of the animal body, but of consciousness. He felt everything more acutely, the smell of resin, the cracking branches, the steam coming out of his mouth. He tried to walk, but he staggered. The human body was a balance that was difficult to master. He fell to his knees, laughing bitterly. "So, man is born helpless," he murmured, his voice hoarse, and then, for the first time, the wind answered him. A gentle breeze rose from the east. Tea passed through the fir trees, rustling gently, and touched Tarak's face. Tea was no ordinary wind. It was warm, almost comforting, although the air was icy. A voice came from it, clear as the sound of water on stones. "Man is born helpless to learn strength." Tarak turned suddenly, searching for the source of the sound. "Spirit." The wind hissed through the branches, like laughter. "You have learned to speak with your mouth, but you must also learn to listen with your soul." Tarak closed his eyes. The world was filled with rustling, whispering. Every tree, every fallen leaf, every breath of air had its own vibration, a small voice. From them, that old presence that he recognized emerged again, the spirit of the forest. "I can no longer look at you as a being, Tarak. But I am here, in the wind, in the morning light, in the sound of the trees. You wish to be human. Now you must learn to live like one." "How do I live, spirit? I know nothing. I am cold, I am hungry, I am afraid." All men begin like this. Cold teaches their bodies, hunger teaches them desire, and fear teaches them prayer. The words flowed around him like a song. Tarak felt the air creeping through his hair, wrapping itself around his skin, enveloping him like an invisible cloak. "And why do I feel sadness, spirit? Never, as a wolf, have I felt this. It is like a void that pulls me to the ground. Because man has memory and longing. You have lost your pack, your mother, your sky. But you will find something else, the connection between hearts. People are not united by blood, but by feeling." Tarak remained silent. He looked around. Far away, at the edge of the forest, traces of smoke could be seen, a village. The fire of people, a small flame of curiosity lit up in it. The spirit continued its voice, while the snow around it began to sparkle in the sunlight. "Listen, Tarak. The wolf still lives in you. The instinct, the strength, the patience. But man must earn his place not through fangs, but through understanding. Stop hunting. Look. Learn. Feel." Tarak touched the snow with his fingers. Tea was soft and cold. Inside it he felt the pulse of the earth. "I feel that everything breathes. even what seems dead. That's right. Man forgets this, but you must not. You will be the bridge between two worlds, the beast and the man. Remember what you feel now. When you live among them, the world will try to take it from you. The wind grew a little rougher, sending a gust over the fir trees. An avalanche of snow fell from their tops, scattering around Tarak. From the middle of this white curtain, for a moment, he glimpsed the light of the spirit again, a thin, translucent figure with green eyes that seemed to be made of air. The spirit had no clear face, but only an expression of mercy and majesty. I will watch over you for a while, son of wolves, but then you will have to walk alone. Every man must lose himself once to find himself. Tarak looked at that light longingly. He wanted to throw himself into it, to return to his fur, to the safety of the pack. But in his heart, the voice of the spirit whispered to him that there was no way back. Spirit, humans, what are they really like? The light trembled. I am the wind cut in 2.1 side gives life, the other destroys. But even the cruelest of them have a spark in their hearts. Find it, protect it. Maybe you are the one who will teach both beast and man to stop fearing each other. The light slowly faded, leaving behind only the whisper of the wind. Tarak was left alone, but something had changed in him. He was no longer scared. He looked at the sky, and without knowing why, he smiled. He began to walk. His steps left deep tracks in the snow, and every touch of air made him start. He found a spring covered in ice and bent down. The water was clear as the mirror of the sky. In it he saw his face for the first time as a human. He had amber eyes, black hair, and a deep, almost sad look. "This is what man looks like," he whispered, so fragile, yet alive. He drank from the water, shivering. Then, instinctively, he began to cover his body with pieces of fur left on the rock, remnants of what he had been. The spirit had left him a deerskin cloak, which warmed him slightly. When he stood up, the wind passed through the branches again, bringing a murmur. "Remember, Tarak, do not forget the forest. When you forget, your heart will turn to stone." As he descended into the valley, Tarak discovered everything as if for the first time. The cold had a taste, the light had weight, and the sounds, new meanings. He touched the bark of the trees and felt that each one had a story. The wind told him about sleeping bears, about frozen rivers, about deer seeking shelter. From time to time, from the horizon, he heard a strange sound, knocks rhythmic, metal he didn't recognize them, but they attracted him. T was the world of people. He stood for a while on a stone, listening. The spirit no longer spoke now, but the wind still whispered to him, "Do not be afraid of the road. Fear is the beginning of understanding." Tarak understood that the wind was more than air. It was the voice of the forest itself, the voice of the spirit who watched over him. Every time he felt fear, the breeze returned and brought him peace. Towards evening, the sky lit up in fiery colors. Tarak reached a peak, and far away in the valley, he heard a howl. T was the pack. His mother, Alyona, and his brothers, Nuri and Sion, were calling to the north. His heart broke. He wanted to answer, but his voice could no longer form that sound. He only let out a weak moan, which was lost in the wind. The spirit spoke to him again, almost whispering, "Don't call them. They must think you are dead. Only then will you be able to live as a human. But on full moon nights, when the wind brings their howl, know that it is their love that seeks you." Tarak fell to his knees, tears burning his cheeks. "I will carry them within me, spirit, I will never forget them." "Then you are not lost. Only people who forget become shadows." The wind caressed the snow and dissipated among the fir trees, leaving behind only its gentle echo. When night fell, Tarak looked towards the distant village. Small lights danced there, human fires, living sparks. Each one seemed like a star fallen to the ground. "That is where they live," he said, almost fearfully. And, without looking back, he set off towards the light. The wind followed him, like a blessing. "Go, son of the wolves," he told him for the last time. "Learn what it means to be human, but never forget the song of the forest." And then, in the great silence of the taiga, a strange sound was heard, Tarak's first human laughter, short, warm, trembling. The wind carried him far, beyond the mountains, where the pack heard him and answered with a howl. Two worlds greeted each other for the last time. Chapter 9. Meeting the Spirit. Night had fallen over the Siberian taiga like a heavy cloak, full of mystery. The fir leaf crackled under the first frost of the night, and the wind brought with it the smell of snow and the earth dug by roots. Tarak walked slowly through the silent forest. Each step creaked in the hard snow, reminding him that his body, although human, did not yet know the world completely and the heart of the forest. On a small clearing surrounded by giant fir trees, a greenish-white light suddenly lit up. The air was charged with a rare and vibrant energy. Tarak felt a presence that was not of the wind, nor of the forest itself. It was the spirit of the forest, coming to meet him in his human form for the first time since his transformation. The spirit appeared in the form of a tall man, with long white hair, eyes of emerald, and an aura that seemed to be made of the light of the aurora. His features were gentle, but his eyes carried the depth of the ages and the knowledge of all living things. Tarak stopped, feeling his human body tremble with emotion and fear. "Spirit, you are here," he whispered, trying to control his trembling. "That is right, Tarak," the spirit answered, his voice vibrating like an echo in the cold air. "I called you here to prepare you for what is to come. The path of man is not easy. The world you will encounter is not only light." Tarak clenched his fists, and his heart he felt a flame of courage mixed with anxiety. "I lived as a wolf, spirit. I learned the wind, the forest, the pack. But everything I see now, people, scares me." "Why? Is everything I felt as a wolf not enough?" "Because now you feel with your mind and soul, not just with instinct," the spirit answered. "Man is a dual being. He can be kind as a clear sky and cruel as a storm. You must be careful of both sides. You cannot judge by appearances." Tarak took a deep breath, and the air chilled to the marrow of his bones. The snow rose gently around him, like a veil of light. "But how do I know if I can trust them?" The spirit smiled slightly, his eyes shining like two emeralds in the darkness. "Trust is earned, Tarak.It is never given at the start. Some people will be crueler than your pack, but others will be better than any wolf you have ever known. You must see and feel, adapt. Your wolf heart will help you understand, but your human mind must choose." Tarak glanced over the forest. Everything was silent, but he felt the whole of nature watching him, preparing him for the ordeal that was to come. "Spirit, I feel that the world of people is complicated. Is it true that some of them can be worse than me? Worse than my fangs and claws?" "Yes," the spirit answered, with a gravity that seemed to make the earth vibrate. "Some people kill for greed, for fear, or for hatred. But even the cruelest have vulnerabilities. Learn to read them and understand them. T is the first step to truly knowing them." Tarak bowed his head. His heart was beating fast. "And the others? What will happen to my mother, my brothers? The pack?" The spirit took a step closer to him, as if the air itself had taken the form of a protective cloak. "They will feel your loss, but you will need to remain human. If you return to your pack now, you lose what you have gained. Go understand, people. You must leave behind the life of a wolf. It is not easy, I know. But for every choice there is a price. Your choice is to live among people, to feel, to love and suffer like them." Tarak closed his eyes. He felt his body trembling, not from the cold, but from the emotion of his first understanding of the truth. He was vulnerable, but strong at the same time. "I understand. But what if I am wrong? What if people hurt me? You will make mistakes. It is inevitable. But even mistakes will teach you. You have the eyes of a wolf, Tarak, and the mind of a man. You will find your way, if you listen to your heart. People can hurt each other, but they can also love more deeply than any wolf." The wind began to blow stronger, carrying snowflakes like a luminous rain. Tarak felt each snowflake caress him like an encouragement. "Spirit, it is hard to leave everything behind. The wolf in me does not want to lose everything. You will not lose him, son. The wolf will live in you. The howl, the speed, your instinct, all of these will remain living memories. But now you need something else, the feeling of people. Their eyes, their hearts, their fears and joys." Tarak took a deep breath. The forest surrounded him, but for the first time he felt no fear. The wind spoke to him, the light caressed his face, and the spirit stood by him, patient. "What must I do now?" Tarak asked, his voice trembling but determined. "You are going to the village, without fear, but with an open heart. You will meet good people, but also be careful of signs, gestures, looks. Some will be friendly, others dangerous. Remember, your wolf heart and your human mind are your weapons. Use them wisely. Tarak felt the light of the spirit penetrate deep into his chest. Tea was like a promise. He was not alone. The forest was watching over him. The wind was his ally. The spirit was following him unseen, but almost always present. Spirit, I will honor you, I will learn what it means to be human, without forgetting who I am. So be it, Tarak. But remember, people can be as cruel as the pack, but their love can be deeper than any wolf howl. Learn to distinguish. You will be tested, but you will survive, if you remain attentive and kind. Tarak looked into the distance, where the village shone like a small fire under the night sky. His heart leapt, knew that this was where his true journey began. He was no longer a wolf, but not an ordinary man either. He was something in between, a bridge between two worlds, a witness to instinct and conscience. The spirit made its farewell sign, transforming from a greenish-white light into a breeze that was lost among the fir trees. Go forward, Tarak, whispered the wind. Oh, not forget the song of the forest, nor the howl of your heart. Tarak took a step. Each step was heavy, but determined. I'm ready, he said, to see the world of people, to learn to live. And, with the light of the fires below in front of him, he descended towards the village, with the heart of a wolf and the body of a man, ready to face good and evil, love and hate, discovering for the first time the true complexity of the world of people. Chapter 10. The Choice. The dawn of a cold morning illuminated the clearing where Tarak was still surrounded by the Siberian forest. The air was sharp but pure, and the wind blew gently, carrying with it the scent of resin, fir and fresh snow. Tarak felt his human body pulsating with new life, but deep in his heart the echo of his old wolf self remained. Ever since the spirit of the forest had spoken to him of the path he had to travel, Tarak had felt a tension between two worlds and him, the wolf's instinct, the strength of his fangs and the agility of his legs mixed with the need to understand, to feel, to live as a man.It was an unseen struggle, a conflict between nature and conscience, between freedom and responsibility. Tarak closed his eyes and raised his arms to the Siberian sky, breathing deeply the cold air. He felt how every fiber of his body vibrated, and the echo of the wind seemed to speak to him once more. Spirit, he whispered, his voice trembling, I feel like I'm at a crossroads. I miss my pack, the night sky I shared with my mother and brothers. I miss the howl that made the forest tremble. But I also feel like I want to know what it is to be human. But what do I have to give in return? The wind took shape, transforming into a greenish-white light, and the spirit of the forest appeared before him again, in his form of a slender man illuminated by the aurora borealis. Tarak, the spirit said in a calm and serious voice, the price of transformation is not easy to live among humans. You must give up the voice of the wolf, the howl that made the forest vibrate, all the senses that connected you to your pack, and in return, you will receive something more fragile, but stronger in its own way, the heart of a man. You will feel love, fear, joy, and pain, in a way that no wolf can know. Tarak felt his heart beating hard, almost as if it wanted to burst his chest. A wave of emotions swept over him, longing for the outlaw, curiosity for the world of humans, fear of the unknown. And if I choose, if I accept, will I be completely different? He asked, looking at the spirit with wide eyes. Will I no longer be a wolf, nor completely free? The spirit nodded slightly. You will be free in a different way. You will discover the freedom that comes from responsible choice, from understanding the world, from love and compassion. But you will no longer be able to cry out in the night like a wolf. Neither the pack, nor your mother, nor your brothers will hear your voice anymore. You will feel this emptiness, but in return you will receive a heart that will understand the pain and joy of people. This is the power you gain. Tarak sat down on the snow, bare-legged, shivering in the Siberian cold. He remembered every moment spent with the pack, the games with his brothers, the lessons of his mother, the first hunt, the first snow he ran without fear. He felt how each memory hit his chest, bringing with it the longing and melancholy of a time that will never return. Spirit, I will miss everything I was. How can I leave this behind? The spirit bent down slightly, looking at him with compassion. Because to be human is to accept loss and use what you have learned. You will keep the wolf's coat inside you, in memory and in instinct. But your heart will learn to love and feel more than instinct. Tarak closed his eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the wind mingle with his breath, and a moment of absolute silence. He heard the echo of the pack in his heart, a faint howl. Like a sigh lost in the forest, he knew he would never be able to utter it again, but that he would keep it within himself. Forever. I do this. Spirit, he said in a firm but trembling voice, I accept the price. I want to feel what it means to be human. I want to live with all its pains and joys. The spirit smiled, and its light became more intense, enveloping the entire clearing. The air was charged with a warm, comforting energy that seemed to touch every cell of Tarak's body. Then, son of wolves, so be it. Every fiber of your body will feel the change. Your heart will now beat to the rhythm of humans, and the world will accept you as you are. You will discover love and pain, fear and courage, joy and loss. All of these will be yours, and you will be able to choose how to use them. Tarak felt a wave of warmth run through him. His body began to tremble, as if every muscle, every bone, and every nerve were being sculpted anew. The claws were gone for good, the fur had melted, and his skin was soft and warm. His amber eyes sparkled, filled with a new light, a mixture of knowledge and emotion. As the transformation ended, a faint echo caressed his soul. T was the old wolf voice, now transformed into an inner murmur, like a memory that would always guide him. T the same time felt how the human heart begins to beat with the rhythm of the world, accelerated by fear, slowed by sadness, vibrating with joy and affection. I feel everything, Tarak whispered, his eyes full of tears. Each emotion is like a fire in my chest. The spirit passed easily through an unseen touch, caressing his heart. That's right. Every human feels deeply and completely. This is your strength and vulnerability. Oh, not fear them, Tarak. Learn to use them wisely. You will know love, you will know loss, and you will discover what it means to truly live. Tarak breathed in again, feeling the cold air fill his lungs and his heart pound. He knew he would no longer be able to shout for his pack, that he would no longer be able to run through the fir forest as he once had. But he felt he had gained something more important, the ability to feel, to understand, and to love. Spirit, I will never forget you, he said, his voice trembling but determined. I promise you that I will use this heart as it should. The spirit took a step back, and its light began to dim. Your choice is made, Tarak. Go forward with courage. The world of men awaits you, and your heart is ready to receive all that follows. Oh, not forget the song of the forest, the howl of the pack, and my gift. Now, you are fully human. Tarak stood up slowly, feeling his whole body, but his heart full of unexpected strength. The forest looked at him silently, and the wind whistled through the fir trees like a blessing. He took his first steps towards the world, knowing that what he had lost, the voice of the wolf, was not a final loss, but a bridge to a life full of new experiences. For the first time, Tarak felt truly human, ready to feel the love and hate, the courage and fear, the joy and pain of the world of men. And so, with his human heart and the memory of the wolf in his soul, he set off for the village, in search of a life that would truly belong to him. Chapter 11. Transformation. Night had fallen like a black sheet over the Siberian taiga. The sky was dotted with cold, silent stars, and the moon rose above the tops of the fir trees, casting long, trembling shadows on the snow. The air was thick, smelling of resin and ice, and it seemed as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Tarak stood on the lonely rock, looking into the distance. Beneath his human body, he felt the wolf's howl still pulsating inside, a deep, ancient echo that reminded him of who he had been and what he was losing by stepping into an unknown world. But now was the time of the final transformation, the moment when the howl would merge with the human voice, and the wolf's instinct would be carried in the heart as a gift, not a burden. The spirit of the forest appeared again. Its greenish-white light shone in the darkness, outlining a shape of a man with long hair like snow and emerald eyes. The air around them vibrated, and the forest seemed to be caught in a sacred mystery. "Tarak," said the spirit, his voice floating across the clearing like an echo of the wind, "today you will become fully human. But you must endure the pain of transformation. Everything that was beast in you will be changed. The fangs, the fur, the claws, all will disappear, and in return, you will receive the gift of a human heart and voice. Are you ready? Tarak took a deep breath, feeling his chest tremble. Fear and curiosity mixed into an emotion that was hard to define. He looked up at the starry sky and said decisively, "I am ready, spirit. I accept the price. I accept the pain." The spirit smiled slightly and raised his hands. From his palms, green light poured over Tarak, enveloping him like a shining veil. The air was charged with energy, and the wind began to howl through the fir trees. The snow rose in spirals, like a dance of the forest spirits. "Look within yourself," the spirit whispered. "Feel the fiber of the wolf, listen to your instincts, but let them melt in this light. Everything beastly will become fuel for your human voice." Tarak felt a sharp pain run through every bone and muscle. His claws clenched instinctively, then snapped. His fur bristled, burned in a burning sensation that was both cold and hot, then melted into the air like a mist. His sharp fangs and teeth retracted into his gums, reshaping themselves into human molars. The pain was unbearable and yet fascinating. It was as if every fiber of his being had been rewritten, every nerve recalibrated. The howl that had filled the forest until then began to transform into a new murmur, a sound that was no longer just that of the wolf, but the beginning of a human voice. "Ah!" Tarak cried, feeling his body being reshaped. I feel them disappearing." The green light penetrated deep into his chest, into his heart that was already beating differently. He was no longer just blood and muscle, but a being capable of complex emotions, of fear, love, and pain on a rational level. His heart, once a wolf's, was adapting to the human rhythm. Its beats were synchronized with the world, with the silence of the night, and with the echo of the forest. The spirit touched the surrounding air, and for a moment, every fiber of the forest seemed to bow before Tarak. "Feel the voice that is born," said the spirit. "T is no longer just a howl. T is your voice. T will be weaker at first, but strong through truth and emotion." Tarak opened his mouth, and a fragile but clear sound came out. "Aya!" It was a transformed howl, a cry of the being reborn. T was no longer the howl of the pack, no longer just fear or calling. It was a voice with soul, a voice that carried pain and curiosity, desire and fear, the whole essence of a being born from two worlds. "I feel," Tarak murmured through tears, "I feel everything. The light, the pain, the forest, the world. Everything is within me." The spirit looked at him with compassion. "This is the birth of man from wolf. Every pain you feel is a gift. Every fiber that changes is a step towards knowledge. Your howl will remain in memory, but your voice will tell stories, feel love, go through losses and triumphs. Now you are ready." Tarak stood up heavily, feeling how each step was a revelation. His human legs trembled, but his body responded more completely than ever. The air penetrated deep into his lungs, and his heart beat with unexpected strength. He felt alive, more alive than ever. "Spirit," Tarak said, his voice firm now, but still echoing the howl, "thank you, for the pain, for the light, for the voice." The spirit nodded, the green light enveloping him once more. "Remember, Tarak, this transformation is not the end, but the beginning. The world of men will test you, men will love you and hurt you. But your voice and your heart will be your allies. Keep the memory of the wolf within you, but use your voice as a man." Tarak closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The cold air seemed to fill every fiber of his life. From deep within his chest, a long sound came out, a hybrid between a howl and a human cry, which was lost among the fir trees. T was the transformed howl. His first fully human sound, but still carrying the wildness of the forest and the echo of the pack. The spirit's green lights began to fade, leaving behind only a shadow of aurora on the cold snow. Tarak remained alone on the rock, feeling how the entire forest was watching him. He began to walk, feeling how each step brought him closer to the village, to the people he was about to meet. For the first time, Tarak felt completely alive. He was no longer a wolf, but not an ordinary man either. He was a being who carried two worlds within himself, ready to understand love and hate, courage and fear, joy and loss. "I am ready," he whispered, as the wind whistled through the fir trees, "Go begin life as a man, but without forgetting the song of the forest and the howl of my heart." And, with his human heart and the voice born of the howl, Tarak set off on the road to the world, leaving the lonely rock behind, but carrying with him the memory of his old self. Chapter 12. The Shadow in the Mirror. The dawn of the Siberian winter brought an almost sacred silence over the snow-covered taiga, for trees, laden with ice and frost, shone like crystal columns in the weak sunlight. The air was harsh and clear, and the wind blew with a murmur that seemed to answer every thought of the forest. Tarak was alone, slowly descending the steep path that led to a frozen stream. Each step left deep tracks in the snow, but in his chest he felt the pulse of new energy. The transformation into a man was still fresh. His heart beat with a slower and yet more conscious rhythm than the wolf's. The wild howl had been transformed into a voice, but until then Tarak had not fully understood what it meant to be human. Before him, the frozen stream stretched like a long and fragile mirror. The icicles, thin and translucent, reflected the light of the day in a pale spectrum of green and white. Tarak stopped. His heart leaped with a combination of fear and fascination. What am I now?" he whispered, his voice still trembling a little, unusual for a man-bear. He slowly leaned over the frozen water, looking at his reflection. At first, he thought it was just a play of light, an illusion of the forest. But as his gaze met his form, he understood. The face in the mirror was that of a man. His eyes were the same amber, but they no longer shone with the wildness of a wolf. They were deep, contemplative, with a hint of misunderstanding and pure curiosity. His hair fell on his forehead in a gentle mess, and his skin was soft white, completely different from the fur he had worn for years. Tarak touched his face with his palms. The sensation was strange, warm, fragile, and yet familiar, as if every cell recognized his new body. The reflection followed his movements and seemed he studied it, as if the stream itself had witnessed this rebirth. "This is me," Tarak whispered, his voice trembling in contact with reality. "My face is that of a man. But everything is different." The spirit of the forest appeared again, like a greenish-white light flowing through the fir trees. His voice echoed calmly and gently. "Yes, Tarak. This is where your true journey begins. The shadow of the wolf still lives within you, but now you must learn to see through human eyes. This is your mirror, your first contact with yourself. You are no longer just instinct, but thought, emotion, and above all, choice." Tarak looked at his reflection more closely, and his eyes, the echo of the pack, was still present. A shadow of light and darkness. T was the face of a man, but it carried within it the howl, the silence, and the hunt that had defined his life as a wolf. T was a paradox. Strength and fragility, instinct and reason, wildness and sensitivity, all woven into one body. Spirit. How can I be human when everything I knew about myself is gone? "It has not disappeared," the spirit answered. "The wolf lives within you, in every choice you make, in every look and gesture. But your voice, Tarak, is something else now. It will express love, fear, pain, joy, things that no wolf can utter." Tarak took a deep breath. His hair was full of ice, and his skin was flushed with cold, but he felt a warmth coming from within. T was the fire of his own consciousness. A flame born of self-awareness. He leaned back over the water and began to study each of his features. His eyes, his nose, his lips. Trying to move his mouth, he discovered that his human voice could express not only sounds, but emotions. He murmured softly, almost like a prayer. "I am Tarak. But I am someone else now. Am I me?" The spirit smiled. "This is the question every man must ask himself. Who you truly are is not just what you see in the mirror, but what you feel and choose to do. Your face is new, but your soul carries everything you have experienced." Tarak bowed his head to the water, watching his reflection as it contorted gently in the morning rays. Around him, the snow sparkled, and the green light of the spirit seemed to pulse with the rhythm of his heart. He felt a connection between his own life and the forest, between his wolf past and his human future. "I feel pain and longing, but something more," Tarak whispered. "I feel possibility. I can choose who I will be." The spirit came closer, and the wind caressed his face, carrying with it the scent of the forest. "Exactly, that's the key, Tarak. The mirror doesn't just show your face, it reflects what your heart can become. Accept your shadows and your light, and you will learn to live among people. Tarak looked up and, for the first time, smiled. It was a fragile smile, shy, but true. Small sound came from his chest, a faint laugh, not a howl, not a grunt, but the beginning of his voice as a man in the water. The shadows of his wolf past still danced, like patches of light and darkness. But Tarak knew that they would no longer control him. Every step he took would now be a conscious choice, and his voice would be able to express love as well as anger, fear, and courage. "Spirit, I will walk among people," Tarak said, his voice still trembling, but firm. "And I will learn what it means to live as a human, without forgetting who I was." "Who I was, oh be it," the spirit replied, the green light gradually fading, leaving behind only a breeze. "But remember, your shadows will always be here, in your eyes, in your heart. They will guide you, but they will not define you. You choose who you will be." Tarak rose from the stream. He felt every fiber of his body, every heartbeat, every vibration of his voice, the reflection of the frozen water. He now saw the face of a complete man, with the imprint of the wildness of the forest and the echo of the howl of the pack in his eyes. The first steps he took on the snow were uncertain, but determined. Each step was a reaffirmation of his choice. Tarak understood that the world of men was complicated, but that he now had the tools, the voice, the heart, and the memory of the wolf, to face it. "I am Tarak," he whispered, looking around the forest that watched over him. "And I will go forward, as a man." The snow sparkled under his footsteps, and the forest seemed to sigh softly. The shadow of the past and the light of the future merged within him, preparing him for the encounter with the world of men. For the first time, Tarak felt that his choice to become a man was not a loss, but the beginning of a true life. Chapter 13. The Descent from the Mountains. The winter dawn poured over the Siberian taiga with a pale, transparent light. The snow-covered meadows sparkled like a carpet of diamonds, and the air was so clear that it seemed that every breath filled your lungs with ice crystals and life. Tarak, his heart still pounding in his chest, stood on the edge of a steep stone wall, looking at the mountains that gradually descended towards the village in the valley. Every breath of wind brought him the echo of the forest, reminding him that the wolf in him was always present, even though his body was now that of a man. The spirit of the forest had given him new clothes, a thick woolen tunic, sewn with green and blue threads that shimmered subtly in the morning light, a thick faux fur cloak, suitable for the Siberian cold, and padded boots that protected his delicate feet, unaccustomed to years of running barefoot through the forest. Everything was designed to allow him to cross the mountains and reach the people he wanted to meet safely. Tarak felt the clothes envelop his body, and for the first time since his transformation he felt completely protected. Every step was a discovery. How his skin felt under his clothes, how the cold air caressed his face, and how the snow crunched under his thick boots. The descent from the mountains was not easy. The path was steep, covered with ice and fresh snow. Every step had to be calculated. Every stone and every twig had to be studied so as not to slip. But Tarak felt that every difficulty brought him closer to the world of people, and curiosity pushed him forward. "Everything is different. Everything is human," he whispered to himself, trying to understand the sensation of fragility and strength he felt simultaneously. "But everything I learned as a wolf helps me move forward." The forest around him was still alive, even in the harsh winter. The fir trees bent their branches under the weight of the snow, and the wind blew through them with a murmur that seemed to tell him, "Be careful, but do not be afraid." Tarak felt that the forest was watching over him, that the spirit of the forest had remained close to him, even if its green light had faded. As he descended, the mountains became gentler and the snow was shallower, and in the distance he saw the first houses of the village. Thick snow roofs, smoke rising from chimneys, people moving between houses and stables. Tarak felt fear and fascination for the first time. Simultaneously, it was as if the forest and his pack were now a distant past, and the future lay before him, full of the unknown. "People, there they are," he whispered, feeling his human voice echo strangely in the cold air. "I will see, I will know, I will understand." The spirit of the forest appeared again for a moment, like a light breeze that surrounded his shoulders. "Be careful, Tarak. This is their world. Some hearts are good, Others can be dangerous. You will feel curiosity, but also fear. You will be tested. But remember, your wolf heart and your human voice will guide you. Use them wisely. Tarak nodded and took a deep breath. That moment, he felt the weight of the choice he had made. Losing his howl and gaining a human heart, was a combination of pain and exhilaration, of freedom and responsibility. Every step towards the village was a reaffirmation of this choice. On the way, he encountered the first obstacles: slippery rocks, broken branches under the snow, and tracks left by forest animals that still roamed the mountains. Tarak observed them carefully, using the wolf's instinct combined with human reason. Was the first real test: to cross the mountains without getting hurt, to use his old senses and new abilities at the same time. I feel everything: the air, the snow, the wind, and them, he whispered, looking at the village that was gradually approaching. The people, their world, how do they live it? As he descended, the first signs of civilization began to appear: wooden fences, beaten roads, sled tracks in the snow. Tarak observed every detail, fascinated by curiosity, felt that this world was much more complex than the forest, but at the same time it attracted him like a magnet. His first encounter with a domestic animal, a dog barking timidly from a village stable, brought him a thrill. His wolf instinct told him to approach cautiously, and his human reason stopped him. He quickly learned that this world was governed by different rules, but known through observation. Tarak realized that each step towards the village transformed him little by little: the way he walked, the way he breathed, even the way he used his voice. This was adaptation, learning a world that could not be discovered with fangs or claws, but with eyes and heart. The village was now close. Tarak could see women and men working in the yards, children running and laughing, and the smoke from the chimneys spreading a smell of burning wood and cooked food. His amber eyes reflected everything: fear, curiosity, fascination, and the desire to get closer. There, the people, their life, he whispered, trying to control his emotion. I have to move on, to understand. The spirit offered him one last piece of advice, through a slight flicker of green light. Be careful of your first reactions, Tarak. People can be scared or curious. Some will welcome you, others will reject you. Don't run away from them. Learn, feel, but don't forget who you are. Tarak took a deep breath and took his first steps out of the forest, onto the road that descended to the village. The snow was crunching under his boots, and the air was filled with the smell of burning wood and domestic animals. Was his first real contact with the world of people, and his heart was beating fast. I am Tarak, and here begins my life among men, he whispered, his voice trembling but determined. I will learn, I will feel, and I will live, as I have never lived before. The village was now a few steps away. Tarak felt how each step brought him closer to the unknown, but also to possibilities. Was the descent from the mountains not only physical, but symbolic, a step from instinct to consciousness, from wilderness to humanity, from the pack to the community of people. Looking around, feeling the snow under his feet and the cold air in his lungs, Tarak knew that this journey was just beginning. But he was ready. With the heart of a man and the memory of a wolf in his soul, he stepped into the village, leaving the mountains behind, but carrying with him the full power of the Siberian forest. Chapter 14. 𝕆𝖗𝖗 Village. The sun was barely rising over the village of 𝕆𝖗𝖗, bathing the thick snow-covered roofs and the smoke rising from the chimneys of the houses. Tarak stood at the edge of the main road, feeling his heart pounding in his chest. His human legs still seemed fragile after years of running across meadows and rocks, but each step brought him closer to people, to the world he had always watched from a distance, with wolf eyes. The first glances were those of children, their curious eyes, large and incomprehensible, fixed on the stranger who was coming down from the forest. Tarak immediately noticed the suspicion hidden in their gestures. They stopped playing, their hands clenched into palms, and their laughter died down. The wolf reflex in him pushed him to carefully study every movement, to feel hidden intentions, to detect fear and curiosity. People, they are watching me, Tarak whispered to himself, his voice trembling but firm. I must go forward, to understand. From a courtyard, an elderly woman, her hair tied in a bun and her cheeks red from the cold, noticed him. She raised her hand in a cautious gesture, but her eyes were gentle. Tarak felt for the first time in his human life that not all people were dangerous, that some could be good. even if initially seemingly cold and suspicious. "Good morning," he said in a trembling but determined voice, trying to control his tone, not to sound threatening. The woman approached slowly, measuring Tarak's every step, as if to make sure he did not pose a threat, and her hand was a basket of warm bread, steaming in the cold air. "Good morning, stranger," she said, her voice gentle but cautious. "Where do you come from? And who are you?" Tarak felt his heart beat faster. It was his first real contact with a human, and the first one who didn't chase him away or look at him with pure fear. He felt a thrill of hope. "My name is Tarak. I come from the mountains," he said slowly, feeling how each word was a discovery of his own voice, a confirmation that he was now human. Around him, people slowly gathered, their faces full of suspicion. A massive man, with a beard heavy with frost, crossed his arms and looked at him with narrowed eyes, and Tarak's eyes. The wolf instinct was red. Fear, warning, possible aggression. "Stranger, what are you doing here? Are you lost or something else?" asks the man in a deep voice, each word heavy as the frozen wood around him. Tarak felt the tension rise. He remembered the spirit's warning. People can be evil or good. This was the test, to see who had an open heart and who hid fear under the appearance of power. "I do not seek evil," Tarak said calmly, but firmly. "I only want to understand, to know, to live among people." Child approached bravely, forgetting his fear. His large eyes studied Tarak with sincere curiosity. Tarak smiled, feeling for the first time that his voice could bring peace, not just alarm. "Hey, are you from the forest?" asks the child, his voice trembling with emotion and fear combined with fascination. "Yes," Tarak replied, "I came to meet you, to learn about you." The massive man sighed, still unconvinced, but the woman with the bread basket took a step forward, handing him the bread. "Then eat," she said, with a gentleness that seemed to warm the cold air. It was the first gesture to show that we were not all bad. Tarak felt a deep emotion. Every fiber of his former wolf self quivered, but this time in gratitude, not instinct. He took the bread with both hands, feeling the warm texture and the aromatic scent, and said, "Thank you much." Slowly, people began to lower the barricade of initial fear. A young woman, with ice-blue eyes and hair tied in a simple ponytail, approached. Her smile was shy, but sincere. "I don't think you came here for evil," she said, her voice full of warmth. "You can stay a little, but be careful. Some people are still afraid." Tarak felt a combination of courage and fear, but also a surge of joy. The first gentle glances opened the way for him to a new life, and his human heart beat strongly in his chest. On the way, another man looked at him with suspicion. His eyes were sharp, his face was frowning, and in his movements you could feel fear mixed with latent aggression. Tarak felt instinctively that this would be one of the hardest people to conquer. The spirit of the forest had witnessed it, and now Tarak fully understood the warning. Not all people were good. Some could be worse than the cruelest wolf in the forest. "You came here without asking permission. Who are you really?" the man asks, his voice deep, almost a warning. Tarak took a deep breath. He couldn't use force. He couldn't run or hunt. He was human now. His voice had to be gentle, but firm. "I am Tarak. I don't come to harm. I come to understand, to learn, to live among you." The silence that followed was heavy, but then the man tilted his head slightly, recognizing the sincerity in Tarak's eyes. It was the first victory of his adaptation, the first confirmation that the human heart and the wolf instinct could work together to build trust. The children began to laugh again, encouraged by the smiles of the women. The bread in the basket was shared, and Tarak felt for the first time that a community could accept a stranger. Yet, deep down he knew that many more tests were yet to come. Suspicion, fear and malice were all around, but also kindness, curiosity and generosity. Tarak understood that the world of people was complicated, but fascinating. Every gesture, every look, every word carried a weight that a wolf could not feel. And yet, his wolf instinct helped him read the signs. Who was sincere? Who was afraid? Who was hiding dangerous intentions? This is their world, Tarak thought, watching the village begin to come to life around him. And I will learn to live here, to know good and evil, fear and love, as I have never lived before. That morning, Tarak felt for the first time that his voice and heart could build bridges between people and his wolf instinct, and every step he took in the village of Yarensk brought him closer to understanding the world of people. Suspicion and fear had not completely disappeared, but the first outstretched hand, the first gesture of kindness, had shown him that he too could respond to them with courage and sincerity. Chapter 15. Mira, the girl with ice hair. The cold morning air in the village of 𝕆𝖗𝖗 seemed gentler than in the past days. The snow creaked under the people's footsteps, and the sunlight, short and shy, reflected on the snowy roofs and heavy icy branches. Tarak crossed the village courtyards with careful steps, his every movement another lesson in adapting to the human body, to the voice and to its limits. His amber eyes shone with curiosity and a dose of caution, and his senses, once calibrated for the forest and the wolf pack, tried to understand the gestures and intentions of the people on the way to the central square. He saw her for the first time. The girl with ice hair. Her shining white hair fell in fine strands on her thin shoulders, and her blue eyes, like crystal, looked at him without fear, without suspicion. In a world where most studied him with fear or distrust, her gaze was different, curious, warm, and sincere. Tarak felt a strange thrill, an emotion he had never felt before, either as a wolf or as a human. It was a combination of fascination, respect, and an unfamiliar sense of closeness. He took a deep breath, trying to control his voice and gestures. "Good morning," he said, his tone still a little shaky, but firm, addressing her indirectly, as if his voice were a bridge between souls. Mira smiled, without blinking, and replied gently, "Good morning. You're new here, aren't you?" Tarak felt his heart jump. He hadn't been judged, hadn't been asked about his mysterious origins or his transformation from a wolf. He was just being listened to. "Yes, I come from the mountains," he said slowly. "I am Tarak." Mira tilted her head, analyzing him carefully. There was no fear in her eyes, but a curiosity that did not seek quick answers, but understanding. "Tarak, a beautiful name," she said. "Do you want to walk a little together?" Tarak felt a deep emotion, the first invitation to get closer from a man who had not rejected him. He nodded and began to walk alongside her, slowly, with steps that still needed time to get used to the terrain and his human body. Their path took him through the village market, among stalls with winter vegetables and fruits, with people who still looked at him with suspicion, but who slowly began to notice that the girl with ice hair walked fearlessly alongside him. Tarak felt how her presence protected him, how her simple calm attention reduced the tension around him. "How is life here for you?" he asks, curious, trying to understand people's habits, but also how he felt in their presence. "Life is complicated," Mira replied with a shy smile, "but beautiful if you know how to look. There are good people and bad people, but every day brings something to learn. How are you? Do you feel good here?" Tarak took a deep breath, trying to find the words. It was not easy to explain what he felt. The wolf's howl still lived in his heart, but the human voice allowed him to express something more subtle, more complex. "It's different, but I feel I can learn," he said. "Fear and curiosity, it's all here, among people. Aren't you afraid of me?" Mira laughed softly, her crystalline sound resonating like a gentle echo among the village buildings. "No, Tarak, I look at you and I see that you mean no harm. I see curiosity, but also kindness. I think that's what matters." Tarak felt a strange warmth fill his chest. She was the first person who understood him without harsh words, without judgment, without suspicion. Her presence calmed him, and her smile seemed to reconcile the old savage in him with the new man. They continued walking through the village, and every gesture, every movement, seemed to build a bridge between them. Tarak noticed everything. How Mira looked at people, how she smiled at them, how she listened more than she spoke. Tea was a lesson in itself. Being human is not just about talking, but also understanding and feeling. In a way, Tarak also felt the gazes of other people, still full of distrust. Some looked at him with fear, others with suspicion. But Mira's every step alongside him seemed to soften the tension, to offer people a simple explanation. Not all strangers bring harm. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Tarak asks at one point, feeling an old man's eyes studying him with distrust. "Because we don't understand you yet," Mira said gently. "But we will get to know you. That matters more than the initial fear." Tarak felt a strong emotion, his first lesson in trust and patience in the world of people. He could no longer use his strength, claws, or speed, but had to use his words, his gaze, his gestures. And here 𝕲𝖏 offered him a guide, an invaluable support. They stopped near a frozen river that cut the village in two. Tarak bent down to touch the water, remembering his human reflection in the mountain stream. 𝕲𝖏 looked at him carefully. "Have you learned to see who you are?" she asked him, her voice warm. "I'm trying, but it's hard," he answered. "Everything is so different. But you help me understand. And you help me see things I haven't seen before," she said. "Thank you, Tarak." Tarak felt his heart beat faster. It was his first feeling of genuine connection, without fear, without judgment, without the pack's past or the wolf's instincts overwhelming him. It was a pure connection that was beginning to transform the world around him. Looking into her blue eyes and the warm silence, Tarak understood something essential. 𝕲𝖏 did not see him as an intruder, but as a being with a soul, with the power to understand and love. This was the lesson the spirit of the forest had brought. The human heart and the wolf's instinct can work together to build trust and true bonds. "I want to learn from you, 𝕲𝖏," Tarak said, feeling his voice, though still a little clumsy, begin to express complex emotions. "About people, about the village, about life." "And I from you," 𝕲𝖏 said, smiling. "Maybe you are the first to help me see that even the wilderness can be gentle if it is understood." And so, among the sounds of the wind and the crunch of the snow underfoot, a fragile but deep friendship began to be born between Tarak and 𝕲𝖏, a bond that would define not only Tarak's first steps in the world of people, but also his heart that was opening for the first time to love and trust. That day, the village of 𝕆𝖗 was no longer just an unknown place. It had become a land of discovery, where the voice of a former wolf and the heart of a man met for the first time in connection with another soul. Chapter 16. The Language of Fire. The morning in the village of 𝕆𝖗 unfolded with a special silence, interrupted only by the crackling of wood in the hearth and the crunching of snow under the footsteps of passers-by. Tarak felt strangely calm, but also full of new emotions. His transformation from wolf to man had been complete from a physical point of view, but not spiritually. His human voice was still forming, his words sometimes came out trembling, and understanding the world of people was a complex puzzle that he had to decipher step by step. 𝕲𝖏 was waiting for him by the hearth of a small house, covered in snow, with her eyes blue as ice and her shining white hair falling in fine strands on her shoulders. Her presence calmed him, gave him the assurance that not all people's gazes were full of suspicion. "Are you ready for the lesson?" she asked with a gentle smile. Tarak nodded, feeling his heart beat faster. It was the first time someone had offered to show him the true light of language, of human thoughts and emotions, to help him understand joy and sadness, work and play. "Yes, 𝕲𝖏," he said, his voice still trembling, "I want to learn." 𝕲𝖏 led him to a small wooden table, where she placed sheets of parchment and an ink pad. "Today you will learn to speak and write. Every letter, every sound, is a step towards understanding our world." Tarak watched carefully, his amber eyes fixed on 𝕲𝖏's every gesture. Every movement of her hand seemed to transform the air, to create a subtle, light, yet profound magic. "We will start with the basic sounds," 𝕲𝖏 said. "Listen and repeat after me. E-I-O-U." Tarak tried to reproduce the sounds, but his voice trembled, and some noises came out wrong. 𝕲𝖏 encouraged him, smiling gently. "Don't rush. Understanding comes with patience. Just as you learn to alert through the forest, you will learn to speak." Each lesson was a discovery. Tarak learned to articulate words, to link sounds into sentences, to express subtle emotions, such as joy, surprise, sadness, or amazement. His voice gradually transformed from a trembling and uncontrolled sound into an instrument that could express complex feelings. "It's strange," he said at one point, looking at his own hands. "Words can convey so much. You don't have to touch or bite to make yourself understood." "Exactly," 𝕲𝖏 replied. "This is the magic of human language. It can be gentle, it can be strong, but most of all, it can build bonds. Oh, you want to see how?" 𝕲𝖏 began to show him books with simple drawings. People working, children playing, people hugging. Tarak looked at each image with fascination, feeling that learning the language was not just about words, but about understanding the world and emotions. "These people," he murmured, "they live together, they help each other, but can they also be evil?" "Yes," 𝕲𝖏 said, her voice soft but sincere. "Some people can be cruel, But most try to do good, be while learning to read, speak and write, you will understand and be able to choose how to react. Tarak took the pencil in his hand. It was strange to feel the wood, to trace the letters, but his wolf instinct helped him pay attention to the details. Mira guided him step by step, A, B, C. Each letter became an instrument of communication. And with each letter, Tarak felt his human heart opening more and more. "It's like I'm building something invisible," he said, looking at the letters on the parchment. "But what I'm building, I can't touch, only feel." "Exactly," Mira said, smiling. "Words are our fire. They warm, illuminate, and sometimes can hurt. But if you use them carefully, they can bring joy and understanding." Learning was not easy. Sometimes, Tarak wrote letters wrong, pronounced words clumsily, and Mira patiently corrected him. But each mistake was a step forward. Within an hour, Tarak had managed to write his first words: light, fire, forest, Mira. Each letter was a link between his wolf past and his human present. "You have taken the first step towards the language of fire," Mira said, gently stroking his shoulder. "Now you can say what you feel, without hurting, without running, without screaming." Tarak felt complex emotions: joy, pride, relief, and a deep desire to learn more. His voice felt more alive, freer, and his wolf soul and human heart were starting to work together for the first time. "Mira, thank you," he said sincerely. "You taught me to feel, to express, to live differently. And you teach me to see things from a different perspective," she said, smiling. "You can feel joy and sadness more purely than many of us." Tarak smiled shyly. Learning the language wasn't just about speaking or writing words. It was about feeling the world, understanding the complexity of people, and transforming emotions into connections. Together, they spent hours by the fire, Tarak practicing his pronunciation, writing words and sentences, and Mira encouraging him to feel every emotion he expressed. Each sentence was a step toward his integration into the village, toward becoming a complete human being. "See," Mira said, pointing to a drawing of people playing in the snow. "These simple joys, they make life more beautiful. Language is the key to understanding and sharing them." Tarak looked at the image, feeling that the snow and the cold of the forest were no longer the only things that warmed his heart. Now, Mira's voice, words and presence taught him what true human warmth means: communication, understanding, and shared joy. "I will learn to speak, to write, and I will learn to feel how people feel," he said decisively. Everything I saw in the forest, will help me understand more." Mira smiled at him, her eyes shining like ice under the morning sun. "I will be here too, Tarak," she said. "Together we will learn the language of fire, and the joy of being human." And so, by the village hearth, between the flickering light of the fire and the blueness of the snow, Tarak discovered for the first time the true magic of language: not just words, but their power to connect, to understand and transform the world around him. That day, it was no longer just Tarak, the former wolf. It was Tarak, the young man who was learning to see the world through the eyes of other people, to feel joy, sadness, friendship and love, guided by Mira, the girl with ice hair. Chapter 17. Memories of the Pack. The nights in the village of Yarensk were long and quiet, and the snow reflected the moonlight like a silver ocean. Tarak often woke up with his heart pounding, with a strange shiver that made him feel fear and longing at the same time. Even though his body was now human, his soul retained the memories of the wolf, the ties to the pack, and the sound of the wind through the Siberian taiga. One evening, tired after hours spent with Mira learning the language of the people, Tarak fell into a deep sleep, and dreams began to carry him back to his native forest. The cold wind blew through the huge fir trees, and the snow crunched under the pack's trudging footsteps. Tarak saw Alyona, his mother wolf, in the middle of the group, her eyes gentle and authoritative at the same time. Her voice was not just a howl, but a lesson alive about life and respect and the dream. She told him, "Tarak, remember who you are. The pack will always protect you, but you must learn to listen to the earth, feel the air and respect life. Oh, not forget these things, even if your path takes you to other worlds." Tarak felt his heart tighten. Every word of his mother was an echo of the past, a connection between the old savage and the man he was trying to become. He looked around and saw his brothers, Nuri, with sharp eyes and always ready to play, and Sion, quieter, but with the same young energy, who challenged him to play fights, to run through the snow and to discover his hunting instincts. "Tarak, come here," Nuri shouted, with joy in his voice. "Oh, you want to run to the Black Rock? Don't forget, Tarak," added 𝕲𝖐, "you have to feel the wind, listen to the earth, and pay attention to the road." And the dream Tarak ran alongside his brothers, feeling the snow under his paws, the cold that ran through his fur, and the wind that caressed his cheeks. His emotions were mixed: joy, freedom, courage, but also sadness, knowing that he could no longer return to wolf form. Looking at the forest, Tarak felt how every tree, every rock, every snowflake spoke to him about his past, about his true identity, that of a Siberian wolf. And yet, at the same time, he felt that the man he was beginning to become could not be ignored. It was a conflict between instinct and reason, between wild freedom and the responsibility of life among people. And the dream, Tarak stopped next to his mother. Alyona looked at him with gentle but wise eyes. "I see you, Tarak," she said. "I see you learning to be human, but don't forget who you really are. Your roar, your amber eyes, your courage, all of these are part of you, don't lose them." These words pierced him deeply. Tarak felt his mother's voice nourish his soul, how each piece of advice was imprinted in him like a living memory, a guide for the life that lay ahead. The dreams continued, and the pack gathered for the daily hunt. Tarak observed every gesture, every movement, every decision made by the older cubs and the adult wolves. He learned from their instincts, even though now he could no longer participate as before. He was only a witness, but a witness with intense emotions: courage, fear, pride, and respect for life. And a moment, in a dream, Tarak was alone on the Black Rock, the same rock where he had raised his soul to the spirit of the forest. The wind blew gently through his hair, his imaginary wolf, and his amber eyes shone in the moonlight. He felt small in front of the world, but powerful through his memories. "Why did I come here?" he murmured to the wind. "Why do I have to be human?" Alyona's voice echoed in the air. To understand the world beyond the packs, Tarak, to see how people live, to feel love, joy, but also pain. Everything you learned as a wolf will help you be a true man. Tarak felt a lump in his throat, and the dream, he cried, but not tears of despair, but tears of longing and gratitude. The longing for the forest, for his brothers, for the wolf in him, mixed with gratitude for everything he had learned and for everything he was going to learn in the world of people. Then Tarak woke up in the house in 𝕆𝖗. The snow glistened in the moonlight, and the fire in the hearth flickered softly. Mira slept beside him, her presence calming him. Still, the dreams had left him with a taste of nostalgia and power. He felt like they had not been just a dream, but a message from his pack, a memory that told him that his instincts, his courage, and his connection to his family had not been lost, but were with him even in human form. He slowly rose and looked outside. The forest was now far away, but its echoes accompanied him, the sound of the wind in the fir trees, the crunch of snow under unseen footsteps, the hidden howl of the pack. Each memory was like an anchor that kept him connected to who he had been, while he learned who he was now. That night, Tarak understood that his transformation was not about losing the past, but integrating it into the present. Each hidden howl and soul, every imaginary run through the fir trees, every advice from his mother and every laughter from his brothers formed him as a man, gave him patience and courage for the world of people. The moon rose higher in the sky. Tarak closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Alyona, Nuri, 𝕲𝖐, for everything you taught me. I am here, but I keep all that was beautiful in the forest." And for the first time since the transformation, Tarak felt a deep peace. It was not just the man learning to live among people, but Tarak, the wolf and the man, a whole soul that could feel pain and joy, fear and courage, loneliness and love. The dreams of that night offered him not only nostalgia, but also an inspiration, a guide for the days to come. How to use his courage and wild instinct to understand people, how to approach Mira and other good souls, but also how to guard against the malice of those who did not see with an open heart. Thus, the memories of the pack were not just echoes of the past, but an invisible thread that connected his life to the wilderness of the forest and the people he would meet. That night, Tarak learned that the past and the present are not exclusive, but complementary, and that good hearts and the courage to learn can build bridges between seemingly different worlds. Chapter 18. Love. The days passed slowly in the village of 𝕆𝖗, and the snow began to thin on the roadsides, leaving room for the sun to warm the cold atmosphere. For Tarak, each morning brought a strange mix of emotions: joy, curiosity, but also a subtle fear. It was no longer just a young man learning to be human. He was also a soul discovering the unexpected power of love, a feeling that his wolf instinct had never known. Mira was always by his side, not only as a teacher, but as a gentle and understanding presence. Her blue eyes, like ice melted by the winter sun, looked at him with warmth, without judgment and without haste, and her presence, Tarak felt for the first time that there was another being who understood and accepted him completely, with all his contradictions, his wolf past, his distrust and his desire to belong. The world of people. 1 February morning, Tarak and Mira walked together by the river, where the ice was thin and the snow could barely be heard. The air was clear, and the sound of the flowing water seemed to speak directly to their hearts. Tarak felt a shiver, a wave of warmth that came not from the sun, but from Mira's proximity. Tarak, have you ever felt that someone can warm your soul just by their presence? Mira asks, looking into the distance. Tarak looked at her, feeling her words touch him like the sun's rays. He still didn't know how to answer, but he understood her deeply. His human voice trembled a little. No, I've never felt anything like this before, he said. But I'm starting to understand now. Mira smiled, and her smile seemed to transform the cold air into a warm and soothing wave. Tarak felt his heart beat faster, how every fiber of his human body responded to her presence. It was the first time he had truly felt the warmth of another being, not through touch or howl, but through the invisible connection of souls. Do you like being here? Mira asks, slowly approaching him. Yes, very much, Tarak answered, trying to control his emotions. I feel like I can be myself, and that I'm not being judged. This is love, Tarak, Mira said softly. Not just to be seen, but to be understood. You know that someone else accepts you, even with all your past. Tarak closed his eyes for a moment. He felt a warm wave run through him, her warmth enveloping him and making him wish he never returned to the solitude of the mountain. This wasn't just attraction, it was a deep, pure connection that opened his heart and allowed him to feel the vulnerability and beauty of love. And the days that followed, Tarak and Mira spent time together, walking through the village, talking about people and the forest, about dreams and memories. Every gesture, every look, every word said more than any lesson in human language could have. Tarak discovered the joy of the light touch of her hand, of her crystalline laughter, of the gaze that fixed him with understanding and tenderness. One evening, sitting by the fire in the village hearth, Tarak felt for the first time the fear and delight of getting really close to someone. Mira held out her hand, and Tarak felt the heat of her body penetrate his skin and warm his soul. It wasn't just physical touch, it was a touch of hearts, a mutual recognition of feelings that grew with each passing day. Tarak, do you feel what I feel too? Mira murmured, almost in a whisper, her eyes sparkling in the firelight. Yes, Mira, I feel everything, he replied, his voice trembling with emotion. I feel your warmth. I feel that I can be myself, and I feel the desire to protect you. This moment was a complete revelation for Tarak. Love is not just attraction or friendship, but a combination of care, understanding, respect, and the desire to be together, to share life and emotions. It was something that could not be taught, but only felt, and now his human heart was beginning to know this feeling in depth. The first weeks also brought moments of fragility. Tarak felt the fear of loss, the fear of making a mistake in front of Mira or of being rejected. This fear reminded him of his life as a wolf, of packs and the dangers that lurk in the forest. But, at the same time, his love for Mira gave him the courage to be honest, to express his thoughts and emotions without restraint. Tarak, what do you feel? Mira asked him one morning, looking at the pale light of dawn. I feel like I've never felt before, he said slowly, looking at her intensely. Your warmth, your presence, give me courage. And I think I love you. Mira smiled at him with a mixture of tenderness and amazement, lightly touching his cheeks. I love you too, Tarak, she said. And not just for who you are now, but for who you were and who you will become. This recognition was for Tarak like an appearance of light in the middle of the Siberian winter. His heart, so accustomed to loneliness and the wolf instinct, exploded with emotions, and his human body felt every vibration as a new living energy. connecting him to 𝕼𝖏 in a way that no howl or run through the forest could have restored, and the weeks that followed, their love was strengthened. Through small gestures, shared laughter, touching hands, late conversations by the fire, walks through the snow-covered village. Tarak learned to express affection not through the wolf that attacks or defends with force, but through words, looks, and gentle gestures. This was human love, delicate but strong. Tarak, do you know now what it really means to love? 𝕼𝖏 asked him one evening, looking at the sky full of stars. Yes, 𝕼𝖏, it means feeling everything for someone else, being vulnerable but trusting, he said. Wanting to give them everything you have and learning to receive. And so, in the middle of the Siberian winter, between the light of the fire and the white of the snow, Tarak discovered the warmth of love, the first deep experience of human connection. He was no longer just the young man learning to be human. He was Tarak, the former wolf and the man who could feel, protect, and love, understanding for the first time the power of another being to warm his heart. Chapter 19. 𝕼𝖏, the hunter's son. The winter days were slowly slipping away in the village of Yarensk. The air was harsh, and the snow that had only partially melted creaked under people's footsteps. Tarak had already learned to walk among the villagers without fear, to speak, to write, and to feel the world of people. 𝕼𝖏 was always by his side, and their bond had grown into a pure love, which illuminated every step of the long and frosty days. But one morning, the village was disturbed by an uninvited guest, a presence that brought with it tension and the shadow of jealousy. 𝕼𝖏, the son of the hunter Ilya, was getting out of a village cart, accompanied by several strong men, with determined steps and a harsh gaze. He was known for his boldness and pride. For 𝕼𝖏, he was an old admirer, with lively eyes and a heart full of the desire for possession. Tarak, who was in the central square with 𝕼𝖏, immediately felt the change in the atmosphere. His amber eyes narrowed, detecting the latent tension. His rival's voice was heavy, full of hostility, and his gaze measured him with suspicion and hatred. "This is my daughter?" 𝕼𝖏 said in a tone that left no room for answers, looking directly at 𝕼𝖏 and then at Tarak. "Who are you, the stranger who accompanies her without right?" Tarak felt the wolf instinct, hidden deep in his heart, send a wave of adrenaline through him. But now he could no longer retaliate with claws or howl. He had to be calm, use words, control his emotions. He stepped forward, his voice clear and firm, but not aggressive. "𝕼𝖏 and I are friends, and, more than that, I don't want to hurt you." 𝕼𝖏 laughed briefly, mockingly. "Friendship? Stranger with no past, no roots, do you think yourself worthy of it? Do you think you can penetrate Myra's heart, like that, all of a sudden?" 𝕼𝖏 approached Tarak, her hand touching his arm, trying to calm the tension. Her blue eyes looked at him with encouragement and affection. "𝕼𝖏, don't worry. Tarak doesn't take anything from me. He's just someone who makes me feel safe and happy," she said in a soft but firm voice. This sparked 𝕼𝖏's anger. For the first time, Tarak saw his rival's face transformed by pure jealousy. His green eyes were shining with hatred, his jaw was tense, and his hands were trembling slightly with a desire to control the situation. "Happy?" 𝕼𝖏 shouted, standing closer to Tarak. "You don't know what you're talking about. She's my family. I warn you, you won't stay here long." Tarak felt a tension in his body, remembering his wolf days, when meeting a rival in the forest could be deadly. But now his strength was not physical, but patience, courage, and wisdom. Calmly, but firmly, he replied, "I didn't come to hurt her. But I won't leave either. If she chooses me, you must respect that." His words created a moment of silence, a space between them, where tension seemed to pulse in the air. 𝕼𝖏 looked at him with contempt, but Tarak sensed in that look the rival's hidden fear. He did not know what determination was that came not from violence, but from sincere love. And the following days, 𝕼𝖏 and Tarak met frequently, each occasion a test of Tarak's patience and courage. The rival subtly tried to humiliate him, to provoke him, to show that he had no right in a village. But Tarak, guided by 𝕼𝖏 and the lessons of the spirit of the forest, responded calmly, showing the quiet strength of a man who had known the chaos and loneliness of the forest. Tarak and 𝕼𝖏 spent their days together, but the tension of the rival was ever present, like a cold wind that brought shadows across the white snow. Mira encouraged Tarak not to respond to hatred with hatred, to use words and wisdom, and not physical strength or wolf instinct. One evening, Tarak and Mira retreated to the riverbank, where the moonlight reflected on the flowing water. Tarak looked out into the distance and felt how the memories of the pack and the love for Mira enveloped him. Simultaneously, he understood that the rival was not only an adversary, but also a lesson. People can be jealous, possessive, and evil, but true love requires patience, trust, and courage. "Tarak, don't be afraid," Mira said, touching his hand. "Rurik may be strong and stubborn, but you have what he doesn't have, a pure heart and sincerity." This encouragement gave Tarak inner strength. He didn't need to fight with claws, but with love and patience, and Mira's eyes. He saw security, and this security was stronger than any threat from his rival. Rurik, however, did not give up, and the following weeks, he looked for opportunities to show that Tarak was just a stranger, an intruder with no past and no rights in the village. But with each gesture of his rival, Tarak learned to respond calmly, to appreciate his connection with Mira, and to use his mind more than his strength. Despite the tension, the love between Tarak and Mira grew. Every look, every touch, every gentle gesture between them was a silent declaration, a testament to the fact that true love can withstand jealousy and opposition. Tarak felt for the first time that human love is not just emotion, but also courage, patience, and devotion. Qualities he had developed as a wolf but now had to adapt to human life. Rurik, the hunter's son, thus became a constant shadow, a symbol of the challenges that human life brings: jealousy, possessiveness, and the temptation to use force to get what you want. But Tarak learned to transform these shadows into lessons, to stay strong, and to protect the love that bound him to Mira. That winter, the village of 𝕆𝖗𝖗 was not just a place to live. It had become a learning ground of emotional tests and subtle confrontations, where Tarak learned that true love is not measured in physical combat, but in the courage to remain honest and loyal to your feelings, even in the face of threats. And so, between the snow, the wind, and the shadows of the rival, Tarak learned that love is the most powerful weapon, and Mira, with her pure heart, gave him the strength to face any obstacle, be it human or related to the wild past of the wolf within him. Chapter 20: Secrets Revealed. The snow still covered the streets of the village of 𝕆𝖗𝖗, but the air was heavier, denser, as if a premonition of an unseen storm had settled over the wooden houses and over the people who continued their seemingly ordinary lives. Tarak and Mira walked together along the riverbank, talking about winter, about memories from the forest, and about the lessons learned in recent weeks. Tea was a quiet morning, but fate would bring with it a surprise that would shake everything. Rurik, Tarak's rival, had learned from several curious and gossiping villagers a secret that made him look at the world differently. Tarak was not a man born among humans, but had been transformed by the spirit of the forest from a Siberian wolf into a young man. Hearing this, Rurik's heart was filled with a combination of amazement, fear, and anger. The secret, which had been well kept by Spirit and Mira, completely changed his rival. Tarak was not just a rootless stranger, but a man who carried within himself the magic and power of the wild forest. On a cold afternoon, Rurik approached Tarak with a fake smile, but his eyes betrayed anger and distrust. "Tarak, I learned something about you," Rurik said, his voice cracking with tension. "You are not what you claim to be. You are not a real man." Tarak felt his blood flow faster through his veins. Without panicking, he answered calmly, even though his heart was beating fast. "What did you hear, Rurik?" "I heard that the spirit of the forest transformed you. That you were a wolf and now you are human only by the will of a magical being." This revelation created an invisible rift between the two men. Tarak felt the old wolf instinct reawakening, but now it was combined with human reason. He could not fight back with force, but only with words and calm. "It is true," Tarak said in a firm voice. "But that does not change who I am. I am not a stranger to Mira. I am not an enemy to the village, and I have not come to harm anyone." Rurik laughed bitterly, his laughter sounding like a cold echo among the snow-covered houses. "So you are some kind of creature, a mystery. I did not think such a thing existed among us," he said in a voice full of contempt. "And do you think Mira will choose you? That people will forget who you really are?" Tarak looked at him directly, his amber eyes shining with intensity. He felt that every word, every gesture of his rival was trying to shake his and Mira's world, But his true power lay not in his muscles or claws, but in the love and trust he shared with her. "Rurik, magic or not, what matters is what I do here, in the village, among the people," Tarak said. "It is not my past that defines me, but my choices, my deeds, and my love for Mira." But Rurik could not accept this explanation. Anger and jealousy clouded his judgment. For him, a rival with an unusual origin was a threat to everything he considered his own and secured in his mind. Tarak could not be worthy of Mira, because he was not the real man of the village. Rurik began to look for ways to expose Tarak's secret to the village, met with the villagers, spreading gossip and insinuations, suggesting that Tarak's presence brought trouble and uncontrolled magic. Many villagers feared and began to look with suspicion at the young man with amber eyes. Tarak, however, did not respond with anger. The wisdom of the forest spirit told him that patience and good deeds would overcome prejudice. One evening, after Rurik had finished his smear campaign, Tarak met Mira by the hearth. She looked at him with wide, concerned eyes, knowing that the truth was hard to bear for both him and her. "Tarak, it's not easy for you," Mira said quietly. "But the people who matter will see you for who you are, not for who Rurik says you are." "I know, Mira," Tarak replied. "But it hurts to see how some people look at you, with fear or distrust. It seems like I can never escape my wolf past." Mira took his hands in hers, warming his soul. "Tarak, your past has made you strong and brave. But the present and the future depend on what you do now, on your choices. You should not be afraid of their gazes. Your heart speaks the truth." And those moments, Tarak felt how Mira's love anchored him in the world of people, how the magic of his wolf past transformed into inner strength, not into fear or anger. He knew that only through good deeds and patience would he be able to earn the respect of the villagers and protect his relationship with Mira. However, Rurik did not give up. The next day, he went further and gathered a few curious villagers near the central square, trying to reveal the truth about Tarak in a way that would make him seem like a threat. But, to his surprise, Tarak was not scared. He spoke calmly, with a firm and clear voice. "Yes, I was a wolf. Yes, the spirit of the forest turned me into a human. But I did not. I came to do harm. I chose to be here, among you, to live as a human, to love and learn. If you judge me by my past, you will not understand who I really am." His words remained in the air, and the eyes of the villagers began to see more than rumors. They began to see the courage, sincerity, and kindness in him, qualities that no gossip could hide. Rurik, watching this reaction, felt anger and jealousy overcome him as he saw that the magic of Tarak's past did not disqualify him, but made him stronger and more admirable. For the first time, he understood that truth could be an ally, not a weapon, and that love and courage could defeat prejudice and fear. And that cold winter, the village of 𝕆𝖗 began to learn a lesson. Not the past, but deeds and the heart matter, and Tarak, the former Siberian wolf, transformed by the will of the forest spirit, became for the people around him a symbol of courage, love, and wisdom. Chapter 21. The Hunt. Winter in the village of 𝕆𝖗 had reached its peak. The snow, heavy and wet, covered the roofs of the houses and the village roads, and the wind penetrated to the bones of the people. And this harsh atmosphere, the tension between Tarak and Rurik had reached a critical point. Rurik could no longer bear to see how a stranger with a mysterious past won the heart of Mira and the respect of the villagers. In his mind, Tarak was not just a rival. He was a supernatural threat, a demon hidden under the face of a young man. At dawn on a frosty morning, Rurik met with a few close villagers, people with prejudices and fear of the unknown. With a dark gaze and clenched hands, he told them in a low but determined voice, "We can't wait any longer. This stranger, Tarak, is not human. I know what the spirit of the forest did. I know that he was a wolf and that he entered among us through magic. If we do not act, it will be too late. We must stop him, before he destroys everything we have." The villagers, some fearful, others convinced by Rurik's words, began to prepare their swords, spears, and bows. Their fear made them believe that Tarak was more than a man. He was a dangerous being, capable of using the magic of the forest for evil. Meanwhile, Tarak was with Mira, at the edge of the forest, preparing to go to a small camp for supplies. At dawn, he saw the strange movement among the houses of the village and felt how an old wolf instinct warned him. Danger was approaching. "Mira, something is wrong," Tarak said. looking with amber eyes. "I feel fear and hatred in the air. Rurik, he is planning something." Mira looked at him with wide, trembling eyes, feeling the growing tension. "What do we do?" she asks, shaking his hand. "We can't fight all the humans, and leaving isn't safe either." Tarak takes a deep breath. Two worlds were mixing inside him, his wolf instinct, telling him to run or attack, and his human mind, reminding him of the promises he made to the spirit of the forest and his love for Mira. "We must be quick and use our minds. We will go through the forest. T is the only way to escape without hurting anyone." But Rurik did not wait to be detected. Under the cover of snow, he and his men gave chase. His green eyes penetrated the fir trees, and his cold voice conveyed orders. "Don't let him escape. Every step he takes brings him closer to the end." Tarak felt the hunt begin. The snow crunched under his feet, the wind carried his scent, and the wild wolf instinct within him made him sense every presence around him. Despite his fear, his human heart was determined. He would not harm humans. He would use his agility, knowledge, and instinct to escape, not to attack. As they deepened into the forest, Tarak and Mira felt the shadows of their pursuers following them. The tall, close-packed trees formed a natural maze, but Rurik and his men were experienced in tracking and hunting creatures. Tarak had to use everything he knew: false trails, tactical movements, hiding in the diffuse light between the fir trees. In a tense moment, Rurik raised his sword, shouting, "Here he is! Don't escape!" But Tarak, guided by instinct and courage, threw himself into a snowdrift that covered the roots of a giant tree. Mira hid next to him, and their breathing was rapid, and their fear mixed with adrenaline. Tarak felt how his wolf past helped him. He felt the vibrations of the earth, he heard distant footsteps and the approach of enemies, detecting every sound. But everything was filtered through human reason. He could not hurt anyone, he could not use force, he had to be agile, fast and calculated. Rurik, frustrated by Tarak's agility and silence, shouted louder and louder, giving orders to the people to catch him. "Don't let him escape. He's not just a man. He's a demon." This tagging triggered the villagers' fear, and some of them began to move chaotically, without a plan. Tarak, sensing the chaos, decided to use it. He created false tracks in the snow, changed direction, and slipped through a corridor of trees, almost invisible. In a moment of apparent silence, he stopped by a frozen river, breathing heavily, trying to calm Mira. "We must continue, Mira," he said. "We cannot stay here. Every second counts. We must get rid of them without harm." Mira listened carefully, feeling how his courage and accumulated experience in the forest, she felt safe. For her, Tarak was no longer just the young man who had won her heart, but a being capable of protecting and guiding, with a combination of instinct and wisdom at the same time. Rurik and his men were beginning to get bogged down in the dense forest. The heavy snow, the short branches, and the rough terrain prevented them from following Tarak's trail. Furious and helpless, Rurik felt his frustration burning in his soul. The magic of Tarak's past, his transformation, and the agility inherited from the wolf made him invincible, at least for the moment. Tarak and Mira found temporary shelter in a small cave, covered in branches and snow, where they sat down, shivering from the cold and emotions. Their breathing gradually calmed, but the tension had not completely disappeared. "Rurik, he will not give up," Mira whispered. "He will come again. But you are ready. You know how to defend yourself without hurting." Tarak agreed. He had learned that power lies not in claws, but in courage, patience, and intelligence, and that every trace, every move, every tactic was a step toward survival and the protection of the bride. The hunt continued, but Tarak had learned to transform himself into a combination of man and wolf, agile, intelligent, fast, but also empathetic and protective. That Siberian winter, the forest became not only a refuge, but also a training ground, where courage, love, and instinct met to face the fear and hatred of people. Chapter 22. The Call of the Pack. The Siberian forest was deep in its eternal winter, and the wind blew strongly through the tall fir trees, bringing with it the smell of snow and frozen earth. Tarak and Mira had hidden in a small clearing, trying to catch their breath after fleeing from Rurik and his men. The snow shone like silver, but the air was charged with tension, and the forest seemed to be watching them with invisible eyes, anticipating the danger that lay ahead. "Tarak, "I think they are still following us," 𝕲𝖏 whispered, trembling slightly and squeezing his arm. "Can we run further?" Tarak felt the wolf instinct awaken within him. His amber eyes scanned his surroundings, detecting every movement, every sound. It wasn't just fear. It was the call of the forest, reminding him that danger came not only from humans, but also from the wild, where life and death coexisted at every moment. "Stay close to me, 𝕲𝖏," Tarak murmured. "We must be quick and use our minds. The forest can help us, but we must be careful." From the distance among the snow-laden fir trees, Tarak sensed a familiar scent and a vibration in the ground, the presence of his pack, his family of Siberian wolves, led by his mother, Alyona. His human and wolf heart shuddered simultaneously. He was not alone, even though the people believed he could be caught and defeated. Rurik, blinded by hatred and jealousy, had not noticed the subtle change in the air. His green eyes shone with obsession, but his instincts told him nothing about the pack's presence. He and his men continued forward, convinced that they were following two ordinary people. Tarak raised his hand, and a short hiss, like an echo of wine through the fir trees, crossed the forest. "It" was the pack's call, a signal that only wolves could hear. They understood him. From the shadows of the trees, black and whitish silhouettes began to appear, their eyes shining in the weak winter light. Nuri, Sion, and Tarak's other blood brothers ran with their mother, each precise, calculated step, each bite of wind carrying the message, "We are here. We will not leave you alone. They are coming to help us." 𝕲𝖏 whispered, amazed and trembling, but not with fear, but with amazement and gratitude. "Tarak, there are so many of them." "Yes, and not only that," Tarak said in a low voice. "The spirit of the forest watches over us. I feel its light. Even now, we are not alone." Suddenly, the wind changed. The cold breeze of winter was replaced by an almost palpable presence, a subtle green light that pulsed through the trees and snow. The spirit of the forest showed itself, but not under its usual human form. Now its light pierced the forest, making the snow sparkle like thousands of diamonds. Tarak felt how the energy of this spirit strengthened his heart and calmed his fear. The force of nature was on their side. Rurik and his men noticed the movement of the pack and felt an instinctive fear, but they did not know what to do to owe them. It was as if the entire forest breathed and vibrated around Tarak, protecting him from all harm. The villagers who accompanied him began to hesitate, feeling the unseen power of the pack and the magic that enveloped the young man. Alyona, Tarak's mother, stepped forward and raised her muzzle, letting out a deep roar that echoed like thunder through the fir trees. The roar amplified through the forest, reverberating in every corner, and sent a clear message. "Come any closer and you will have to deal with the entire pack." Rurik felt the thrill of the roar, and for the first time he hesitated. His men were beginning to fear. Their spears trembled in their hands, and their eyes sparkled with fear. Tarak, supported by 𝕲𝖏, felt the wolf's instinct and the reason of man merge. There was no need to fight. Only the presence of the pack and the vigilance of the spirit of the forest were enough to stop the attack. "Rurik, it's time for you to understand," Tarak said calmly, but with an authority that seemed to come from deep within the forest. "I am not a demon. I am who I am. And if you continue to follow us, you will face not just me, but the entire pack." Rurik took a step back, feeling fear seep into his bones. His green eyes followed the silhouettes of the approaching wolves, and the green light of the forest spirit blinded him in a subtle but absolute way. For the first time, he understood that power lies not only in the swords and spears of men, but also in courage, love, loyalty, and a connection with nature. "No, it can't be true," Rurik muttered. "It can't just be magic." "It's true," Tarak replied. "But this magic is not evil. It is the protection of those who love and those who do good. You chose hatred, jealousy, and fear. I chose love and courage." That moment, the pack surrounded the clearing, letting Rurik and his men feel the size and power of this family of Siberian wolves, every calculated step, every bite of wind carrying the clear message that Tarak was not alone. 𝕲𝖏, holding his hand, felt how the energy of the forest and the pack warmed her heart and gave her courage. He was no longer just her lover, but a son of the forest and the pack, protected by forces that transcended the world of people. Rurik and his men, seeing this unity and power, hesitated and began to retreat, aware that they cannot face both courage and the magic of nature. Tarak watched as the shadows of his rival and his men disappeared among the trees, and the wind brought only the silence and echo of the pack's howl. The spirit of the forest, shining discreetly among the trees, murmured through the wind, a kind of blessing that reached Tarak and Myra's ears. You have learned that true strength comes from unity and love. Never forget who you are and where you come from. Tarak and Myra held each other in their arms, watching the snow fall again over the forest, calm and pure. Tea was a clear lesson. Courage, love and connection with loved ones can face any danger, be it human or supernatural. In that Siberian winter, Tarak was no longer just a young man transformed by the spirit of the forest. He was a leader, a protector, and a symbol of the connection between man and nature, between the wild past and the present. And even though Rurik still carried jealousy and hatred in his heart, Tarak and Myra knew that no one could shake the love and protection of the pack that surrounded him. Chapter 23. Myra's Tears. The village of 𝕆𝖗 was plunged into an eerie silence, broken only by the cold wind blowing through the snow-covered wooden houses. But this silence was not the peace of winter. It was the silence of a place affected by fear, hatred, and chaos. When Rurik and his men had searched for Tarak and Myra, fear had turned into violence, and the villagers' suspicion into destruction. Some houses had partially burned down. Others were devastated by the fire that had broken out in panic, and the air was filled with the smell of burning wood and smoke. Tarak, now transformed into a young man with the strength and agility of a wolf, felt the people's pain and fear strike at his soul, but he could not respond with force. Myra, next to him, watched as the village that had been their safe place until yesterday turned into a field of ruins. Tears flowed down his cheeks, but not from weakness. They were tears of pain, compassion, and anger against the hatred and jealousy that had destroyed everything they had known. "Tarak, we must leave," she cried, shivering with cold and emotion. "We cannot stay here. The people are blinded by fear and hatred. If we stay, they will not hesitate to hurt us." Tarak looked at the ruins of the village, feeling in every fiber of his body the pain of a world he had only just learned to know. But instinct and reason told him the same thing. Their survival and love depended on immediate escape. "You are right, Myra," Tarak said in a calm but firm voice. "This is not the time to fight. We must hide in the forest, where the fear of humans cannot reach." Myra and Tarak crept through the smoking ruins, their footsteps leaving deep tracks in the soft snow. The people watching them hesitated, unable to accept that those they hated were not behaving like the demons they had imagined. But the hatred and fear were too strong, and 𝕲𝖗 would not give up. With his green, angry eyes, he searched their every move, shouting to the villagers to continue the hunt. As they fled, Tarak could feel Myra's tears touch his hands, and each touch gave him an unexpected strength and determination. Myra was not just a simple village girl. She was a beacon of love and courage, giving him the strength to continue, even in the face of chaos. As they entered the forest, the white light of winter became increasingly diffuse, and the wind brought with it the smell of pine trees and frozen earth. Every step was carefully calculated. Every broken twig, every sound, told them where to go and where to hide. Tarak used his wolf instincts. He felt the vibrations of the ground, detected the tracks of those who were following him, and knew when to stop and hide in the shadows. In a tense moment, Rurik and a few villagers reached the edge of the forest, noticing their silhouettes fleeing through the tall fir trees, furious and desperate. Rurik raised his weapon, ready to fire, but a loud and long howl, coming from the depths of the forest, froze his blood. It was the howl of Tarak's pack, Mother Alyona and his brothers, coming to the aid of the young man. Tarak stopped for a moment, watching as the wolves approached with sure steps, biting the air and carrying in their gazes their protection, love and family bond. The spirit of the forest watched from above, subtly illuminating the snow with a green glow. Like a protective cloak, the wind blew through the fir trees, carrying with it an almost human whisper. "You will never be alone, Tarak. Your protection comes from the past, from love and courage." Rurik felt for the first time how fear paralyzed his mind. For him, this was not just a hunt, it was an encounter with something beyond human understanding. The power of the pack, combined with the protection of the spirit of the forest, made him hesitate, wondering if everything he thought about Tarak was true or just a sign of his own fears. "Go away. Don't come any closer," Tarak shouted in a loud, firm, clear voice, not the howl of a wolf, but the voice of a man who had combined wild instinct with reason. "We don't want to hurt anyone, but you won't catch us." Rurik and his men stopped, feeling the power of Tarak and the pack that protected him. 𝕲𝖵, holding his arm, felt their love and courage grow with every second. They were together, and the protection of nature and the forest watched over them. "Tarak, don't fall prey to their hatred," 𝕲𝖵 whispered. "We are together. We will find a place where the fear of humans cannot touch us." Tarak and 𝕲𝖵 continued to go deeper into the forest, guided by the pack and the watchfulness of the forest spirit. The snow was getting thicker, the wind stronger, but each step brought them closer to safety. Tarak felt how the wolf's instincts allowed him to navigate through the fir trees, and his human mind helped him make precise decisions and protect the love that bound him to 𝕲𝖵. As they moved away from the village, 𝕲𝖵 cried, but her tears were also tears of relief, because Tarak had been saved from her. But the pain of the destruction of the village remained. Her blue eyes, bathed in tears, looked at the white snow that hid the ruins and shadows of people lost in their own fears. "We will find a safe place," Tarak said, hugging her to his chest. "The packs and the forest will protect us. We will be together, no matter what Rurik or the fearful people try to do." And so, in that harsh Siberian winter, Tarak and 𝕲𝖵 understood that true protection came not only from the strength of the pack or the magic of the forest spirit, but also from their shared love and courage. And the forest, among the snow-covered fir trees and under the spirit's bright gaze, they were no longer just fugitives, but two souls bound by courage, loyalty, and true love. And the distance, Rurik and his people retreated, overcome by fear and respect for the unseen force that protected the two young people. The village of Yarensk remained in ruins, but Tarak and 𝕲𝖵 had been saved, and their bond was stronger than ever, ready to face all the trials ahead. Rurik and his men stopped, feeling the power of Tarak and the pack that protected him. 𝕲𝖵, holding his arm, felt their love and courage grow with every second. They were together, and the protection of nature and the forest watched over them. "Tarak, don't fall prey to their hatred," 𝕲𝖵 whispered. "We are together. We will find a place where the fear of humans cannot touch us." Tarak and 𝕲𝖵 continued to go deeper into the forest, guided by the pack and the watchfulness of the forest spirit. The snow was getting thicker, the wind stronger, but each step brought them closer to safety. Tarak felt how the wolf's instincts allowed him to navigate through the fir trees, and his human mind helped him make precise decisions and protect the love that bound him to 𝕲𝖵. As they moved away from the village, 𝕲𝖵 cried, but her tears were also tears of relief, because Tarak had been saved from her. But the pain of the destruction of the village remained. Her blue eyes, bathed in tears, looked at the white snow that hid the ruins and shadows of people lost in their own fears. "We will find a safe place," Tarak said, hugging her to his chest. "The packs and the forest will protect us. We will be together, no matter what Rurik or the fearful people try to do." And so, in that harsh Siberian winter, Tarak and 𝕲𝖵 understood that true protection came not only from the strength of the pack or the magic of the forest spirit, but also from their shared love and courage. And the forest, among the snow-covered fir trees and under the spirit's bright gaze, they were no longer just fugitives, but two souls bound by courage, loyalty, and true love. And the distance, Rurik and his people retreated, overcome by fear and respect for the unseen force that protected the two young people. The village of Yarensk remained in ruins, but Tarak and 𝕲𝖵 had been saved, and their bond was stronger than ever, ready to face all the trials ahead. Chapter 24. Return to Spirit. Tarak and 𝕲𝖵 walked slowly through the tall fir trees of the Siberian forest, enveloped in the deep silence of winter. The snow covered everything with a cold white mantle, and the air was so pure that each breath seemed to fill their souls with clarity and peace. The forest, which only a few days before had witnessed the fear and violence of people, now offered them protection and peace. "Tarak, I feel how the forest welcomes us again," 𝕲𝖵 whispered, squeezing his hand. "It seems that everything calms down when we are here." "Yes, 𝕲𝖵," Tarak answered, looking around with amber eyes. "This is our place. The place where my wolf past and our human present can coexist." And in the heart of the forest, a familiar figure showed them the way. The lonely rock, the place where Tarak used to retreat, where he had been alone in the face of winter, praying to the spirit of the forest to transform him and teach him the secrets of the human world. Now, with 𝕲𝖵 by his side, his steps were surer, calmer, but his heart beat as hard as when he howled. Alone in the snow. "We came to show our gratitude," he said in a low voice, almost a murmur, "and to learn more about what it means to be human, but to keep the beast within you." Mira looked at him with wide eyes, full of love and amazement. She knew that Tarak's transformation had not only been physical. The transition from wolf to man had brought with it responsibility, compassion, and courage. And now, with her, these qualities were amplified and intertwined with their love. When they reached the lonely rock, the daylight was fading, giving way to a magical atmosphere. The snow sparkled subtly, like thousands of crystals, and the air seemed to vibrate with a hidden energy. Suddenly, the spirit of the forest appeared, not in the form of a fixed being, but as a green, pulsating light that seemed to breathe with the forest. Tarak felt a gentle warmth fill his soul, and Mira, looking at the light, felt the fear and anxiety in her soul dissipate. "Tarak, Mira, you have come," the spirit's voice resounded, warm and mysterious, but clear. "You have gone through great trials, you have known fear, hatred and pain, but also love, courage and loyalty. Now is the time to understand the true lesson, the balance between man and beast." Tarak felt his heart beat faster, how every fiber of his body responded to the spirit's call. "Forest spirit, I have tried to be human," Tarak said in a firm but respectful voice. "I have felt love and fear, courage and pain. But sometimes I find it hard to understand how to be both man and beast." The forest spirit pulsed around them, and the green light intensified for a few moments. "Tarak, Mira," the spirit continued, "beast and man can only coexist when the heart is pure and the love is true. The wolf in you has the instinct and the power to protect, but the man in you has reason and compassion. Without love and balance, power becomes destructive. With love, it becomes protection and light." Mira hugged Tarak tighter, feeling that these words were not just a lesson, but a confirmation of what they were experiencing. Their courage and love made them whole, made them face the world together. The spirit of the forest approached, its light forming the outlines of animals. Wolf, peacock, owl and bears, all symbols of nature, instincts and balance. "Each animal has its lesson, each being has its path," said the spirit. "Tarak, you have learned to protect without destroying, to love without enslaving. Mira, you have learned to understand and support, even when the world is against you. Together you have become the symbol of balance." Tarak felt how his transformation had not only been physical. His human heart and his wolf instincts were now merging, forming a harmonious force. Mira, next to him, completed this harmony, offering him the love and support he needed. "Spirit of the forest, I want to remain human, but never forget the wolf in me," Tarak murmured, his eyes sparkling. "I want to protect the forest, Mira, and the people who deserve to be protected." The spirit's light pulses even stronger. "So be it, Tarak. Balance is not just about you, it is about those around you. Man and beast live together only when love and respect are the masters. Never forget that. You have been through great trials, but your true strength is here," said the spirit, symbolically touching the lonely rock. Mira felt tears flowing down her cheeks, but they were not tears of fear or pain, but of understanding and relief. Everything they had experienced, the fear of the village, the attacks of 𝕲𝖗, the hunt and the escape through the forest, all of this had taken on meaning. They were now connected to the spirit, to the forest and to each other in an invincible way. "Tarak, I feel like I have learned to be brave," Mira whispered. "Not just for me, but for you, for the forest, for everything we love." "Me too, Mira," Tarak replied, hugging her. "I feel that the wolf and the man in me can exist together only because I have you by my side. Our love is the bridge between beast and man." The spirit of the forest, shining among the fir trees and snow, seemed to approve. The wind carried whispers that resembled the howls of wolves, but they were gentle, protective, reminding them that nature and man can only coexist through respect and love. Tarak and Mira remained there for a long time, looking at the green light. Feeling the pulse of the forest and the voice of the spirit, it was a moment of reunion, of lesson and promise, that they would stay together, that they would protect the forest, and that power does not mean destruction, but balance and love. That evening, the lonely rock was no longer just the place where Tarak had asked to be human. It had become their sanctuary, a symbol of the connection between the wild past and the human present, between instinct and reason, between beast and man, and the spirit of the forest watched over them with gentleness and authority. Chapter 25. The Last Howl. The years had passed like the snow that slowly melts in the rivers of Siberia. The village of 𝕆𝖗𝖗 had recovered, but the forest remained a silent witness to all the events that had formed Tarak, the wolf cub transformed into a man. Winter had left its mark on the tall fir trees, in the frozen meadows, and in the wind that carried with it the aroma of pines and snow. The air was clean and silent, but charged with memories and mystery, with wild energy and the power of love. Tarak stood on the edge of a high cliff, the lonely rock, the place where he had once raised his howl to the spirit of the forest, asking to become human. Now he looked at the full moon, round and white, which was reflected in his amber eyes. Beside him 𝕲𝖗𝖏, her hair like ice under the moonlight, squeezed his hand, and her smile gentle and warm. It brought him peace and joy that no lonely howl could give. "Tarak, do you remember the first night on this rock?" 𝕲𝖏𝖏 asks, her voice full of emotion. "When you asked to become human and you felt alone?" Tarak turns his gaze to her and smiles, with a mixture of melancholy and gratitude. "Yes, and then I felt that the world of people was so far from me, but also that I didn't want to lose the wolf in me." "Now you are both," 𝕲𝖏𝖏 answers, squeezing his hand tighter. "Man and wolf, courage and compassion, love and instinct. You are complete." Tarak, in the distance, from the depths of the forest, a familiar howl resounds. T is the howl of his pack, his mother Alyona and his brothers, who, over the years, had remained close to him, watchers of the connection between man and nature. The sound propagates through the snow-covered fir trees, strong and clear, but not threatening. It is the howl of unity, connection, and protection. Tarak closes his eyes for a moment and feels the vibration of this howl throughout his body. The memory of the lonely nights, of prayers to spirit, and of his first meeting with 𝕲𝖏𝖏, but also the joy and courage gained during the trials, pulsates within him, and in that moment, he realizes that all of this is merged within him, and that he can respond to the howl of the pack, not with violence, but with love and gratitude. "Now I understand," Tarak whispered, his voice warm and firm, mixing instinct with reason. "Power does not lie in claws or force, but in the balance between what we are and what we love. The wolf in me protects, the man in me loves." He bent slightly and raised his head to the sky, letting the howl come out, a howl full of light, of emotion, of all the experiences he had lived, the first nights of solitude, the call of the pack, the meeting with the spirit, the love for 𝕲𝖏𝖏, and facing the hatred of people. His howl was no longer one of fear, but of strength, love, and communion. 𝕲𝖏𝖏 looked at him with eyes full of tears, but not of pain. Her tears were tears of gratitude and love, because she saw how Tarak was no longer just the man who had fled the forest, but a whole man, capable of living between worlds. From the forest, the pack responded with howls coordinated, each wolf adding its echo. T was like a wild choir, but full of harmony, and Tarak felt their energy envelop him, strengthening his soul and calming his heart. In that moment, he knew that he could respond to the world with love and courage, not fear and violence. "I have lived so much, and yet I feel that everything begins now," Tarak said, looking down at 𝕲𝖏𝖏. "Next to you, I know that I can be complete, human and wolf, brave and loving." 𝕲𝖏𝖏 hugged him to her chest and, in a gesture full of tenderness, touched his cheeks with her fingers. "I feel the same way, Tarak. I have learned that love can protect more than any weapon. And you are living proof that nature and man can coexist in harmony." The full moon was reflected in their eyes, and the forest, in its profound silence, seemed to approve of this recognition. The wind blew gently, bringing with it the aroma of pines and snow, and carried the echo of the pack's howl far into unseen distances, like a story passed down through the ages about love, courage, and balance. Tarak felt that the last piece of the puzzle had made sense. His wolf past, his love for 𝕲𝖏𝖏, and the protection of the pack now formed an indivisible unit, and the spirit of the forest watched over them with a gentleness that made him smile. "Will you continue to howl?" 𝕲𝖏𝖏 asked, smiling and leaning on his shoulder. "Yes," Tarak replied, smiling broadly. "But now my roar is no longer one of pain or fear. It is the howl of love, of protection, and of balance between all the worlds that live within me." And so, on the lonely rock, Tarak raises his head, letting the howl rise to the Siberian sky, carrying with it the past, the present, and the promise of the future. His howl answered the call of the pack, vibrated in the tall fir trees, and seemed to merge with the wind, the snow, the moon, and the spirit of the forest. It was the last howl of a wolf cub who had become man, but who had never forgotten who he had been and what it means to love and protect. Tarak and 𝕲𝖗 remained there, looking at the moon and the forest, aware that both worlds live within them, instinct and reason, beast and man, courage and love. And the forest, the pack and the spirit of the forest watch over them, carrying their story further, through howls and whispers among the fir trees. High, in the winters to come and in the hearts of those who will ever understand the balance between man and beast. That night, under the moonlight and the echo of the pack, Tarak responds with a smile to the howl that had always been with him. The last howl is not the end, but the beginning of a life in which love and courage define every step, every choice, and every moment lived together with 𝕲𝖗 and the forest that protected them. Epilogue. The years had passed over the Siberian forest like a gentle wind that smooths the snow, but cannot erase memories. Tarak, now a strong and balanced man, looked at the moon from a lonely rock, the same place where he had once raised his howl to the spirit of the forest, asking to become human. Beside him, 𝕲𝖗 clasped his hand, her icy hair shining in the silver moonlight, her eyes full of love and gratitude, and the depths of the forest. The howl of the pack echoed in long echoes. Tarak heard it and felt it in every fiber of his body. It was a howl of unity, of protection, of loyalty, a howl that reminded him of Alyona, of his brothers, of the nights when he felt alone and the moments when he had learned what true love meant. Tarak raised his head and answered with a howl of his own, not of fear or violence, but of gratitude and harmony. Both worlds lived in him, the wild instinct of the wolf and the reason of man, courage and compassion, the desire to protect and love. 𝕲𝖗 looked at him with bright eyes. And Tarak felt that his entire existence, the curious wolf cub, the teenager who had discovered people, the man who had learned love, had merged into one complete being. The spirit of the forest watched, the green light pulsing through the fir trees, like a silent blessing. Tarak felt that all the lessons learned, respect for life, protection of loved ones, the balance between man and beast, love for 𝕲𝖗, the courage to face the fear of people and the howl of the pack, all of these made him who he was meant to be. "We are together, 𝕲𝖗," he said, his voice gentle, but full of authority. "And now I know that we can live anything, because we have learned the balance between man and beast." 𝕲𝖗 smiled at him, tears of happiness shining in the moonlight, and that moment, the forest seemed to embrace them, to bring them comfort and strength. The howl of the pack spread, carrying with it the legend of Tarak, the wolf who had become man and who in his heart kept both worlds, along with the woman he loved. Under the moonlight and the echo of the pack, Tarak closed his eyes for a moment and felt that everything was as it should be, a life in which love, courage, and connection with nature coexist in harmony, and his howl is no longer the end of any struggle, but the beginning of an existence in which man and beast can live together forever.